This is S4 with your host, Eric Cooper.
Greetings, folks, and welcome to S4, where we talk about the real issues involving paranormal and current events, coming to you live from the S4 headquarters in the heart of the Cascade Mountains of Washington State. We also cover topics such as disaster and terrorist response and preparation and veterans issues as appropriate. So tonight we have an awesome guest, Dr. Simeon Hein, director of the Institute for Residents, and he owns the Baldy Press Incorporated, and has interests in parallel universes as well as crop circles and extraterrestrial relations. So it's going to be an awesome show tonight. So we only have Dr. Hein for an hour and a half tonight, so we'll get right into it. Good. Doing excellent. Doing excellent. And excited about tonight because, you know, I've studied, so I've never actually got to see a crop circle up close and personal. I've studied them since about the 90s. And so one of my questions for you is, what's the difference, because I'm sure you heard about the two English guys that, you know, showed how they made boards and they made their own crop circles, and I'm sorry, but you can't, how they make crop circles like 100 a night. Hey, there's no way in hell they did that. So, you know, from your perspective as a scientist, what's the difference between a man-made crop circle that, you know, we all know they faked them, and a real one? Mm-hmm.
I got involved through remote viewing. It was a target that the remote viewing instructor gave us in the class I was taking, the week-long class. Mm-hmm. And I had just finished graduate school a couple of years before at WSU in Pullman, Washington, in your state.
Right.
I was a resident of over in eastern Washington, a couple hours away from you guys. And I didn't even know what a crop circle was in 1996. When we got the target feedback, and, you know, these targets are done blind, so you're not told ahead of time what you're looking, and the teacher said, it's a crop circle. I had no idea what that was. So the only way to find out was to go over there. The following year, in 1997, I met a guy named Ron Russell who was at a conference. He was giving crop circle tours. And I thought, crop circle tours, and he said, you know, there were weird things happened around them, they're unexplainable, and I got interested. I thought, well, I'll get to see what I was viewing in my viewing target, Eric. So that's how it kind of started for me. I went over in July of 1997, and what we saw when we went over there were very big formations. The first one I ever saw was modeled after a mathematical object named the Koch snowflake. It's a fractal snowflake shape. I don't know if you've seen it. Kind of six-sided, and it was 300 feet across.
Wow.
Huge. By Silbury Hill, the largest and oldest man-made earth mound in Europe, 5,000-year-old earth mound. Mm-hmm. And it was right there. And I was like blown away by the size and the precision and so forth. And I got hooked, and I kept going back every year to the point where I started giving tours myself in recent years, since 2006. So that's how I got involved with it. And at that when we first started going over there in the 90s, I thought there's no way people could make something that big. You could make something small, and that is just too large, it's too precise. We did find, though, after about 6 or 7 years of going over there, that there were people involved in making some of them.
Right.
And they weren't hoaxers like we thought. They felt there was something supernatural about these shapes. And they felt like they were creating supernatural activity by going out and doing it. And in the long run, we couldn't tell the difference between the ones that they were doing and the so-called original phenomena. Now, I have spoken to people that have seen something like what we call the original phenomena. That's when humans aren't involved in doing it. Mm-hmm. And I wrote about that in my book, Black Swan Ghosts, which I published a couple of years ago out of my, Mount Baldy Press Inc., as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. And it's on Amazon. And I wrote this book after encountering like 15 good UFO witnesses since I got involved with RV. And one of them was a woman named Louise Vovez from North Idaho, and she was picking huckleberries with her brother near Usk, Washington, again, your state, right. By the Indian reservation there. And they saw a flying disc all of a sudden appear over the huckleberry picking area. There were some other people there that saw it, and it went very low over the meadow and flattened all the plants. She said, flat as a pancake. And people can see that interview with her on blackswanghosts.com. I put up the interviews for free of all the witnesses I have in the book, some of the witnesses. Mm-hmm. So that's an example where someone saw a flying disc flatten crops, leave sort of a precise a shape behind. Not a pattern, but it definitely flattened them 90 degrees. So they're both type. There are some that seem to be created by maybe the propulsion systems of these craft, who's ever in them. By the way, in that case, the military came up a couple hours later because some of the people that were there left and called the military in Spokane, and they came up and told Louise not to talk about what she had seen, tried to find out. They came out with instruments to measure, for radiation and stuff. So we don't know what that was. And people would, you go back to the saucer nests in Australia. One of the guys you mentioned, Doug and Dave, the guys from the pub, actually, I believe it was Doug Bauer, was from Australia, and he saw these saucer nests back in the late 60s and 70s. So there's this original phenomena, and there's a man-made side of it that came later on, partly from Doug and Dave. Other people joined in the 90s. But the big take-home message from this, Eric, is that even the man-made ones, and this is what sort of got my interest going in the direction of parallel realities, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. The man-made ones create really strange effects, too, because we've made a bunch ourselves, paying the farmer, telling people we're going to make something to experiment, and we still got the strange effects on cameras and batteries. And what I'm talking about is when you go into crop circles, and you said you never have seen one, but people have gone into them a lot, like me, maybe over 100 in my lifetime. You see your batteries and cameras stop working. And we even found this happened with our own experimental circles, flying over them, walking around in them. So there's something about the shape of them once they're there. And that's how our thinking changed. And then I'll let you ask another question about it. But we originally thought there's a man-made side, that's the hoaxing side, there's the real ones. But then we realized the man-made ones were also electrically active. So that's why I'm saying it's complex. And they're active in some way that affects cameras, batteries. It's not random. I've seen it happen too many times. And I put the videos of some people's cameras, batteries failing on YouTube, Crop Circle Weirdness. You can look for that on my YouTube channel. So the phenomena is really strange, and there's no easy explanation for why those precise crystalline patterns in a grain crop, supposed to be an insulator, right? Wheat, kind of insulating. It actually acts like a conductor to short out your batteries, your cameras. Really weird stuff. So that's the long and the short of it, to summarize.
So have you noticed a difference based on the shape or based on the pattern? Does that make a difference at all?
Yes. The ones that seem to be circular and kind of have these nested patterns inside them. What I mean by that is kind of a fractal repeating pattern that gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Those ones that are round and sort of fractal-like, symmetrical, that's what I should say, symmetrical.
Okay.
Seem, the ones that look like crystals, let me make it simple. The ones that look like crystals act like crystals, and that's freaking weird.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing in science, and I've been studying this for 15 years now through Science Magazine, everything else where you can read about crystals and superconductors and so things called topological insulators. These symmetrical shapes that create anomalous energy. It's really strange, and it suggests another type of physics that's going on where the shape creates an energy pattern. Not an easy pattern to measure, but you see it in the defects it causes in your electronics. And I don't know if you guys have seen that show, Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, recently on History Channel. Maybe you've been talking about it. The Brandon Fugel show, right?
That one I haven't watched, no.
Well, this is the thing. I'm just mentioning it because in the most recent episodes, they showed how they got this camera battery failure sort of thing repeatedly. They had contractors come out to measure radiation and do ground penetrating radar, stuff like that at the ranch. You know what I'm talking about, Skinwalker Ranch in northern Utah, northeastern Utah.
Right.
Yeah. So the same things that they've been showing on that show, where they say all of a sudden my batteries are depleted, that's the same thing we've seen in the crop circles. And what is going on? It's a different type of energy structure. Modern science is pretty slow to look at new stuff, but I could dare say that no one has really come up with a good explanation of this. And anyone who's been around crop circles, if anyone's listening in the audience, has seen this happen or have been around it or heard really good stories from people where it's happened. You go in and your camera starts acting weird. I saw someone make a reference to it a couple days ago with Skinwalker Ranch, calling it like ghost fingers. Like it's a known defect in cell phones where it starts doing its own thing without you touching it. I've seen that sort of happen. Well, why does it happen so frequently around crop circles? So, yeah, there is something really interesting and strange about those shapes.
So now, have you ever tested the crops? And that leads to my other question, too. Is there a difference between what kind of circle it is, whether it's grass, whether it's corn, whether it's wheat? I know you mentioned the wheat has a different kind of energy to it, correct?
Yeah, well, wheat is an insulator, and most crops are insulators, especially once they dry out completely. I mean, that's kind of like cellulose. It should not be conducting electricity. But they have found magnetic patterns around them. That was found at the Milton Hill Farms Formation. Again, this all takes place in Wiltshire, England, the ones I've seen. About 2 hours west of London, the Wiltshire, Wessex. It's previously, 1,000 years ago, the realm of King Alfred, about 800 years ago. The guy that basically created English language.
So you're talking within the Wessex Triangle, right?
Yeah, you could call it the Wessex. Who is this, by the way?
This is Kayla.
Yeah.
Kayla. Yeah, the Wessex Triangle. I guess you could call it that. Yeah. It's an area where there's a lot of ancient Celtic ruins and druidic sort of stuff, Stonehenge, Avebury, and a lot of weird things happen around them, and a lot of the crop circles showed up in that area. About 2 hours west of London. And, so it seems because most of them are in wheat that I've seen. That's where I've seen most of this happen. That doesn't necessarily mean it wouldn't happen in other grain crops, but I've seen like 95% of the ones I've seen have been in wheat.
Now, have you ever checked the cell structure of any of the stocks? From what I understand, with a lot of the valid crop circles, the cellular structure is altered.
I haven't actually done microscopic analysis, so I can't really answer that question.
Okay.
But we have seen the blown nodes, so to speak. The nodes of the plant are where the plant bends towards light. We've seen these swollen nodes in formations we've made too. So there are physiological changes to the plants after the crop circle is there. I can say that. That's something I've seen. Whether it happens before is a little harder to answer, but seen them in the ones we've made where we've paid the farmer and it's totally legal, and we've looked and we've seen these kind of swollen nodes later on. So that one is a little hard to say. What we use to measure, the stuff that we've used to measure it pretty much has been electrostatic meters. And we've gotten a lot of high static readings in a bunch of these formations. Other people have gone in with magnetometers. It isn't something I've used a bunch because magnetometers are now built into cell phones, but we started doing this in 97. I did before, cell phones are the way they are now. It's so packed with all these different detectors in them. So people have noticed magnetic changes. And think about it. How would just a pattern in the wheat affect the magnetic field unless you've really changed something fundamental in the electromagnetic structure? There's no way to fake that. There is no way to fake that. And that shows that the symmetry of it, that's my view, so the symmetry of some of these patterns is activating some sort of energy that you normally find in a wheat field when the wheat is just growing the way it normally does.
So what do you think is the significance of crop circles from an off-world perspective? I've seen videos, and I can't remember I can't remember where the video came from. It was years ago, back in the late 90s. But there was a witness that actually watched an orb come down, and the orb disappeared, and there's a crop circle. Do you think there's an alien connection to them?
There does seem to be some sort of otherworldly connection to crop circles. My take on it is that the patterns themselves are like a crystalline technology. And it attracts these phenomena too. It's not, the way people looked at it for a couple decades is, well, we had the Tully saucer nest in Australia where discs were seen landing, taking off, and these patterns were seen in the reeds where they were. And you get reports of crop circles where there have been UFO sightings. Kind of the way you sometimes get Bigfoot sightings around where UFOs are, right? And it seems that once you put the pattern there, you also get that type of activity, because speaking to these circle-making groups that have pretty much remained secret throughout the years, the ones that were working in the UK, and most of them, by the way, are believers in the phenomena. They just were curious and excited to make them themselves. They weren't trying to fake anything. They've told me that they've seen orbs around the circles even before they made them, or in the process of making them, or they've seen small triangular craft come over while they're making them. And they're doing this in the dark because obviously, since they're not asking permission, they don't want to be caught.
Yeah, right.
So they see these odd phenomena plus some space-time distortions that are hard to explain. So Simeon's take on it is a little different than the ordinary way to look at this, is that once the formation's there, it creates a sort of warp in space-time where phenomena happen that you don't get in ordinary spaces. You get this sort of conditioned space where other things start to happen. And it seems like that something is attracted to it or coming from somewhere else. I'll tell you why that is. The circle makers themselves have reported these sort of remote viewing type experiences where they imagined making the circle. They felt, I should go out and do this. They got in their car, sometimes by themselves, go out and make something, even small. And they find that people were actually thinking the same pattern as they were, who they didn't talk to that night. Later on, they were able to talk to them and said, we were meditating on that pattern. So you have multiple people thinking of the same pattern on the same night. It's almost like there are these connections going on that are just very weird. Remote viewing, precognition types. One of the things I had a picture in Opening Minds, the first book I wrote about this topic, was a woman that went into one circle, and the group leader said, hey, can you just draw a shape of any other patterns that you think might show up around here? They draw a shape, it shows up the next day. Exactly what they drew on their page. So it's kind of like a precognitive experience. Mm-hmm. So when you look at these crop formations overall, there's a lot of activity around them that's just non-ordinary, that you just don't normally see. People do have RV experiences, spontaneously, precognitive experiences. It happens. But you seem to get a lot more of it around crop circles. They seem to accelerate this process. And that's why I'm interested in it, and I think these topics are connected. You get UFO activity. You get these balls of light, which are a very fascinating phenomena. There's a guy named Bob Grenier who's studying this as part of the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. Martin Fleischmann being one of the discoverers of cold fusion at University of Utah, Salt Lake, right? Fleischmann and Pons. Ball lightning is a type of cold fusion process. It's real. It's a type of quantum process that you get this kind of self-reflexive feedback loop where the energy starts to build up and you get this kind of self-sustaining plasma. And those have been seen around crop circles too. So why? Why of all this strangeness? Now, I got to tell you guys, as a sociologist with a PhD from WSU in your state of Washington, my first thought, I'll tell you, honestly, when I was new to this was, urban legend, folklore. That's how sociologists look at it. That I went over there thinking it was just going to be people telling stories and folklore and all this stuff. But that's not what I found out. What I found was there was something really going on. You could measure it, you could see it, you could photograph it. So it's much more complex than I originally thought. And a very interesting phenomena. And while we're not going over there this year due to the COVID-19 situation, because, you have to be quarantined over there, I'm not even sure places would be open that we normally go to sustain ourselves while we're there. But it's a very interesting subject. And if you look at the research being done in condensed matter physics right now, which has to do with plasma, and condensed matter physics has to do with different phases of physical matter, phase transitions, and matter changing quantum properties. People study this at microscopic scales, right? If you look at some of that work, superconductivity, you find a lot of similar properties to the crop circles, even though the crop circles are happening at this large scale state that you physically see and interact with. You see a lot of that in condensed matter physics, where you get these crystalline patterns, you get these edge effects, superconductivity, materials that switch from being insulators to conductors, which is kind of like what the crop circles do. So I think of crop circles as almost another state of matter, like a fourth state of matter, where it's not quite a liquid, but it moves around. The stalks can be shaped. It's another state of matter that seems to be energetically active. It's like ordinary matter, but put into a very precise shape. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, one more connection to this, guys. Think about all the reports we've had about people being around UFOs with battery and camera failure.
Right.
We've been hearing about this for decades. Ford Motor Company did a study of it in the 70s. There's a report that someone put online recently from NICAP. One of the authors was Donald Kehoe, and the other author was Lore. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. And I've been reading, it's a whole report about strange effects around UFOs from the 1960s. Case after case where people's cars stall, the radio stops working. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So people have been reporting this around ball lightning, UFOs, structured craft, car stops working, all this strange effects that get radiation.
You know what's interesting though too is even in paranormal cases, not even UFO related, you go into a haunted house, you go investigate a haunted location, the same thing happens. So right. It's the energy of either I don't know specifically what the connection is, but there's I've always said there's a connection in all paranormal fields, whether it's UFO, Bigfoot, or even a haunting.
Right.
Is you always have camera drain, battery drain, whether it's a haunted location, a UFO, or even some Bigfoot sites.
Well, I'm going to even bring up something a little bit weirder here. Is if you guys have heard of the green children of like Woolpit, okay. So
No.
It was said that there were children that came from a parallel dimension or something of that nature. And so they were the green children of Woolpit. Well, around that area has been a UFO hot site forever.
Right.
So I'm wondering if, like you were saying, that there might be the connection there between different dimensional travel, different dimensional areas, and UFOs being, crop circles being potentially a doorway into other worlds.
Right. That's exactly it. That's a very good way to summarize it. That's what I think is going on. Like you guys, I don't see these phenomena as separate phenomena. They all seem to be interrelated, right?
Right.
As you're pointing out, Eric, you go into a haunted house, you get the battery and camera failure. Ghost hunters have reported this a lot. And it can't all be separate phenomena. It's the same thing that's causing the camera. And you see this Skinwalker show on the History Channel.
Well, I mean, even looking at like Bigfoot, you have the same camera issue.
Yeah. So I think it's a very reasonable hypothesis to suggest that you're getting a type of interdimensional activity where parallel realities are juncturing a little bit, and you get a little bit of a short circuit.
Well,
normally there's like a separation between these parallel realities, and there's places on Earth and activities for one reason or another where they come close to each other, right? And something comes through. And it creates a little bit of a short circuit, and your electronic says, I don't know how to deal with this. I'm out of here. Short circuit.
Well, the thing that I wonder sometimes is that you have to have 6 points to get a dimensional point of travel, right? Like we see this in different shows, like Stargate or things like that, for instance. The 6 points to get your 7th point of contact. So, have you seen groupings more so for like 6 points to where they would converge to make maybe an opening somewhere in the middle of the 6 points? Or because we know that there's been a lot where there's clusters of them.
I'm not familiar with the 6 point idea, to be honest. I've never heard of that until you just mentioned it.
Okay.
So I can't really comment about that. But what I can say is that in physics right now, various people are looking at this idea that there's parallel realities and there's interaction between them. They haven't gone so far as what we're talking about here. They don't say what happens when you get that interaction, but they're saying if you model it out mathematically, there's no reason why there can't be parallel realities. It's sort of part of quantum mechanics from the beginning, right? Schrodinger wave function describes many possibilities for any object. You've all heard about the wave-particle duality and all that. Things have a wave-like description. So my angle on it, I haven't heard of the 6 point idea, but my angle on it is more, if you look at the debates in physics going back 100 years, this is one viewpoint that is a very strong contender, if not the strongest, which is that the version of the world that you and I normally see is one description out of many for that space-time. Just looking at it as space-time with 2 coordinates. Any particular space-time vector, as it's called, would have multiple possible configurations in the same space. For some reason, perhaps the way our perception works, or just the flow of least effort and the way the universe works with things kind of keep flowing in a particular direction, sort of the basic idea of fluids and hydrodynamics. Things kind of keep going in the direction they're going unless something pushes them in another way. And our perception sort of works that way, our sense of reality. But in the same space, there's other descriptions of it. You normally don't perceive them or interact with them, but under some conditions you do.
Okay. So do you think geoglyphs are another form of crop circle we just haven't recognized yet? Think of the plains of Nazca and
yeah. I'm not sure. The Nazca thing is interesting. I'm not sure if people have reported that type of. Have they reported that type of anomalous phenomena there too? I'm just not aware of that.
I'm not sure, but I know they found so in Ancient Aliens they took another view of the plains of Nazca and they discovered I think 2, maybe 3 new glyphs that they hadn't seen before without the right camera. Now, what's interesting is there's one glyph in Nazca that does look very reminiscent of a crop circle.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with that, but it's a good analogy, which is that when you look at something, it seems like it's a certain way, you're really convinced. But with other ways of recording, measuring a space, you might see something different. Like you guys are aware that what you're reminding me of, Eric, is that when we look at flowers, we see one thing, but bees see the infrared pattern.
Right.
You and I can't see that pattern, but it's there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everything has a multifold description, but we are used to seeing one version of it. But the other version of it's right there, and they're very strong forces. Socialization, the way we're brought up, just to kind of see it the way our culture says to see it. So that's sort of the way I look at it. Now, the Nazca thing is sort of another topic, and I'm not, I just don't know if that's the same sort of thing or if it's just. But Kayla, when you say the 6-point description, you got my curiosity going. What did you mean by that?
Okay, so in order to find any space in time, okay, so any space in time, any space you need 6 points of reference to find the center space, which would be the 7th point.
Mm-hmm.
So in doing that, you have your 6 points, and then so these would be.
You talking the cardinal directions?
Yes, yeah, basically, where you have to have each of these points to add up to make the connection to the 7th point. So it would be, they looked at it in like Einstein's string theory and different things like that, would be how you were able to get into the dimension of the 7th point, basically.
Okay. It's a new thing. It's a new idea to me, but I'll definitely, take a look into it.
All right, cool. So basically what I'm getting from what you were saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the fact that it's more power in the symbol than it is necessarily what it's made of, what it comes from, everything else.
So I have a question.
The shape of it, the precision of the shape gives it a crystal. Just one thing quickly for your question, Eric. Yeah. You guys are kind of aware of crystals and crystal radios, and crystals have the ability to change frequencies from one frequency.
They're big drawers.
Yeah, and I used to build crystal radio kits as a 10-year-old from Radio Shack. I was always amazed that without a battery, you could hear a radio station. I mean, and then the stuff starts going back to Tesla and all that, where he could, felt that the Earth could conduct specific frequencies and so forth, and generating energy that way. So that's sort of the idea, is when you get a very precise shape, it all of a sudden, it resonates. I guess that's the real key theme here, is resonance, right? Mm-hmm. And when you get certain shapes, have the ability to resonance, instruments, right? We resonate at certain frequencies. Basically, physics tells us that everything has a resonant frequency to it that you can identify from Planck's constant. And the crop circles seem to have a particular frequency, and it starts becoming active. So, yeah, that's the way that's why the shape matters.
Okay, so has there ever been a case where a crop circle has shown up twice in the same spot? Same design?
No, not that I'm aware of. It's usually different designs, but that would make sense because things are, the whole milieu of the planet is different from year to year. Yeah. And things change. So you would expect different patterns to be relevant at one time versus another. But let me, you're bringing up another idea that's popping in here, which I think we should mention, is these sort of time travel portals that people experience in certain locations on the planet. Mm-hmm. Right, where people, and this has happened many times, it's definitely real. People go to a location and see something that isn't there anymore, but they've never been there before. And they see something that was there 100 years ago, 200 years ago. I just had a guy in my remote viewing class who had it happen in Boulder, Colorado. He's walking down the street. All of a sudden, everything disappears, and it's like all of a sudden he sees people on horseback, and its buildings are like out west, and it's just like not the same. And it fades away, comes back to the present moment. Maybe you heard about
let me tell you about my experience real quick.
Go ahead, please.
So I was stationed in Germany, right? And me and a buddy were walking down an alley, and right in front of us in this alley, and I just told this story again last week during the Memorial Day show, but it's really weird because we were walking down the alley, and right in front of us was what's called the Ratskeller, and so I always explain the Ratskeller is like your political center of a town. And as we're walking down this alley, both of our vision went to black and white. And in front of us, we see a 1920s limousine with the Nazi flag on one side and the German flag on the other, and Hitler and his whole entourage came out of the Ratskeller. At the moment this was happening, we just kept walking because I don't think it really comprehended in us until years later when I look back at this. But we walked towards Hitler and his entourage, and we took a left onto the main street. And what really sticks in my head is Hitler and his entourage stopped, and they looked at us. Now, I don't know if they saw a couple of USGIs walking down the street or if they saw us as just Germans walking down the street, but they didn't look shocked. And, we took our left, we walked down the street, and my buddy stopped me and he said, "Did you see something weird back there?" And we both got excited because, both of our vision went black and white. Mm-hmm. And we both described the same thing. So we essentially walked into another time and saw Hitler.
What town was it?
This would be about 9, huh?
Town. He was looking for the town.
Oh, this is Bad Hersfeld, Germany.
What were you able to determine? Did that sort of event ever happen? Did Hitler ever visit that area?
No, I haven't researched that part of it yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I can tell you, yes, he did, because after you told the story, I went and I looked up the history of the area and everything else.
So Hitler did go there?
So yes,
okay.
Yes, he did.
Well, that's a very good example, Eric, of what we're talking about. People have had these experiences all over the planet in historical locations, specifically, right? Mm-hmm. Where they see something that's from a whole different time, and you have another person there to verify. Like both of you saw the same thing, and your vision both went to black and white.
Yep.
That is just something, huh? And you saw a historical event that happened, from late 20s, 30s. That's when Hitler, is elected in 33.
This happened in 1992.
Yeah. So you saw something from 60 years earlier.
Yeah. Now, is that a common thing? So on the experiences you've heard, is it always going to be 60 years, or does it vary?
It's often something like that or more.
Okay.
I remember hearing a case that, the case I was thinking about. I saw this on a show on TV in the 90s. A German tourist coming to LA goes up and visits an area in the mountains just north of LA and sees a hotel and all this stuff, and goes down and says to people, "Hey, I didn't know there was a hotel up there." And they say there isn't. It burnt down in the 1920s. It's not there. He went back up and it was gone. So it's sort of the same thing, 50, 60 years in that case.
Right.
I remember I was going to mention the Oregon vortex. There's some place in Oregon.
I've heard of that one.
Definitely.
Well, I remember hearing at this same conference, the first time I ever heard about crop circles, in depth at the same conference in 1997. These two guys were there that had traveled through the vortex, and a snowstorm set in. They stopped in this first motel they could, and it was way out of time. It was from the late 1800s. The charge per night was $5. They were using gas lamps, and everything about it seemed like 100 years out of date. And when they left the next morning, they're driving thinking that there's something totally wrong. They went back and it wasn't there. So that it suggests, if since we're all on the same page here, that if we're looking for a common theme between all these phenomena, that in the spaces we're in, there's other time periods that are also happening right now. Bleed through. That's what you call it, bleed through from another parallel reality. And for some reason, which I guess nobody really understands yet, like your experience, Eric, you get this bleed through from another event. Perhaps it had a lot of energy to it, and it makes its way into your awareness, just like in a remote viewing session. And all of a sudden, it seems almost more real than the quote-unquote correct time period that you're supposed to be in, right? In your case, 1992 or whatever it was.
Yeah. Now, remote viewing. Can you remote view timelines, or does it have to be a location?
Yeah. No. People do remote view timelines, and that's how the government realized it would be so effective as an espionage tool. They found out that you could put the RVer at a location before, during the Cold War, you can imagine they're using this to detect Soviet spy operations in Europe and the U.S.
Viewing spies.
Yeah, so you know where a dead drop site is going to be. You set the viewer, or where people, these two spies are going to meet in a park somewhere. You set the viewer there and move them around the timeline a little bit till the meeting takes place, and see if you can see it happening in the future before it happens, so you can get your guys out there to listen in or whatever. I am told they did this successfully with operations like that. In one case, they got the viewer there. He sees a guy reading a newspaper, and he goes, I don't know. I see a guy there. They said, well, what's the date on the paper? So the viewer looks over the shoulder of the guy sitting there in the RV session and sees the date of this particular target, this individual who's going to be meeting someone, and they know what the date is. So they send people out there at that time to observe the meeting. So I'm told, even though this is cloak and dagger stuff, still kind of classified, that's how they used it to move around the timeline to definitely locate the next major nuclear test from China. Ingo Swann was used, the great Ingo Swann, who created this method that I'm involved with, that I still teach. By the way, I should mention, I'm still doing online classes. We have one coming up at the end of June, 2-day classes. We use Ingo Swann's method. He was tasked to view a Chinese nuclear test. And he said it didn't, they got the results back, and it just seemed like a bunch of fireworks, and it didn't work correctly. And a couple of days later, the Chinese did the test, and that's exactly what happened. It just kind of fizzled out. You can get that with nuke tests sometimes, where it doesn't fission. It just kind of, there's a lot of, fireworks. So,
right.
So it has been used successfully to do that. And so that would suggest, kind of along the lines of what we're all talking about here, is that these events are already happening now. The so-called future is happening now. The so-called past, this event you were mentioning from Germany, seeing Hitler and his entourage, it's sort of still happening now. And you and I create this sense of time, linear time and so forth, past, present, future. But the model of reality that all these phenomena suggest is that things happen kind of in a co-linear way, simultaneously. And they bleed through sometimes. I mean, I think this isn't science fiction. I know it would have seemed like science fiction a couple of decades ago. I think that's what the evidence shows, that this is how it really works.
Now, how long have you been remote viewing?
24 years.
Okay, so what's been your most interesting view as a remote viewer?
There have been a number of them. One of them was looking at the destruction of the dinosaurs to find out what destroyed the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. And I did get a big meteorite, slamming into a lot of dust. And it was so vivid, I actually felt like I was there rather than in the room where I was at the time. It was like what some people call bilocation. You know, you relocate to the target scene. I mean, it felt like being there looking at dinosaurs and swamps and the dust and the ash from the explosions, the collision. So that was a very interesting one. One was looking at the destruction of Pearl Harbor and kind of seeing the Japanese kamikaze planes come in. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it can become very vivid, and this doesn't happen too often. It usually is not this vivid. You get suspicious of it's that 3D. It's usually pretty faint. But a couple of times I've had it where it's very, very strong, and you get a lot of 3D imagery that turns out to be accurate.
Now, my experience researching remote viewing, you have to have a controller, essentially, do you not? It takes two people. You have the remote viewer and you have a controller that's guiding them?
The monitor, we call them.
Okay.
Yeah, not really a controller, a monitor. And they're not guiding them. They're just helping them articulate the words that they're perceiving. The monitor is just there to help elicit information. The monitor should not guide them because you want the viewer to get the information. The monitor doesn't even know the target. Sometimes. Double blind session, it's called. Nobody knows the target. The monitor can still help the viewer get accurate results. That's the really startling thing about it, guys. The monitor can help the viewer get accurate results even if they're blind to the target. Because they can see the viewer getting information the viewer isn't even aware of themselves, and they can help them write it down even if they don't know the target. So they're not really there to guide, but just to assist. It's like you're learning a new skill and you need a little help, encouragement, kind of, to keep going. Mm-hmm. If you're doing something really challenging, that's what the monitor does. Now, the monitor can know the target, and in initial training, the monitor does know the target. But it's simply to watch as the viewer locks onto the target, not to guide them in that direction.
And they use grid coordinates, essentially, correct?
Yeah, you can use geographical coordinates. And back in the 70s, when they were experimenting with this, that's what they used. When they started using coordinates, they just said, let's see if we can use, I forget the technical term of it, map coordinates. Geographical, longitude, latitude. But eventually they realized you could just use random coordinates. In other words, random numbers that are assigned to the target so that you could view things in not even knowing the location, if you know what I mean. Right. You could take a folder and write some random numbers on a sticky note, put it on the top of the folder with the target inside the picture or the verbal cue, and you could give the viewer the random number, and they'd still get it. So you need, the coordinates sort of assist, but they can be random too. I'll tell you why they did that, because people accused the viewers of having some sort of perfect memory, or maybe they'd memorized the whole map,
Right.
And so they did that to kind of improve the scientific credibility.
Okay, so I have to ask, when you went back to the day that the dinosaurs all died, did they have feathers, or were they reptile?
Well, the ones I saw were in a swamp, and they were scaly type, but that doesn't mean the others weren't there. What you would do in that situation is the monitor could move the viewer around the site, and I'm just at one location. Mm-hmm. So, but from everything I read, dinosaurs did have feathers. There's no doubt about it. It's been found in the archaeological record. Some dinosaurs had definitely had feathers. So birds are definitely relatives of dinosaurs. But I can't say that I saw that there when I was there. But I'm just in one random location on the planet 65 million years ago. So.
Right. I was just wondering. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna shift us here. So have you ever seen a UFO?
Yes. Yes, I did. This is sort of what got me interested in a lot of this at age 10 or 11. I was just thinking about this today. By the way, for some reason, Oh, yeah. I was listening to Lieutenant Tim McMillan, who's been researching the ATIP program, an interview he did, and he talked about a sighting he had that got him interested in this a long time ago. So I started thinking about my sighting. I was in the Everglades with my mom in the 1970s, around 78. I was in high school. She was a bird watcher. We'd gone there and do bird watching. We're in the Everglades, which is kind of like a swampy area. And all of a sudden, I see something that looks like the moon right over us, but it's green. And I say to Mom, hey, look at the green moon. And she says, sure, kid. She's looking through her binoculars. Mm-hmm. The moon was actually on the horizon. So she said, eventually, when I kept pestering her, the moon's over there. So then I say, well, what's that? We both look up, and it's this huge green circular thing that looks kind of amorphous, which means you couldn't quite see a definition to it. But It's definitely got a glow to it, and it may be a couple miles up, big. And we both had binoculars. So we looked through our binoculars, and it had a pattern of dots in it that looked like a Z on the bottom, like 8 dots or something like this. No sooner than we had started looking through our binoculars, it starts moving into a cloud and disappear. You could see it move into the cloud because it slowly, as it moved into a cloud, disappeared. That was weird. Then all the power went out. We went to one of the ranger talks at Everglades National Park, and the power was out. And the people we sat down next to had seen it too. So that was my first sighting as a 10-year-old. And you're never quite the same after that. Like, oh, no. What was that? What was that? It definitely didn't feel like it belonged to our reality. I'll tell you that. Even here we are talking about it 44 years later, and for me, 47 years later. And to this day, I can tell you, it just felt like it didn't belong there.
No, and I think that's a big thing. Is the biggest skeptics get changed when they experience something.
Yeah.
So I've got to ask, what?
Nothing. I'm going to leave that one absolutely alone.
Huh?
I'm going to leave that one absolutely alone. They get changed, Eric, do they?
Oh, yeah, okay. Coming from the skeptic to, now you're enthralled.
I didn't change in that way.
So you've heard of Project Sign, Project Grudge, Project Blue Book. Do you think ATIP is there coming out? Because they say Project Blue Book ended in '69. We all know they didn't. Do you think ATIP is their new kind of public exposure to Blue Book?
Well, it's a little different than Blue Book because Blue Book was designed to take calls from the public, right?
Kind of.
Well, I know someone that took the calls for Blue Book.
The Air Force took calls from the public, and they did their own private investigation and exposed what they think they came up with.
Well, we should say for the audience, the ATIP is this program that apparently started in 2007, and then we're told from people that work for it as consultants that a second program branched out of it called OSAP. And Robert Bigelow's organization, BASS, was a contractor for OSAP.
Right.
It's kind of complex. I think I'm getting it right. So it's a little different than Blue Book because Blue Book was something that had a public face, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying they were telling us the truth. We know that there was a classified section of Project Blue Book. And there's a volume of it that's still missing. I think it's Blue Book Volume 14 or something, which existed but never been seen, one of the volumes. So there was a public face to Blue Book, and I know someone that worked at Wright-Patterson in the project who took calls from the public about it. And there was some investigation there, but it was largely a whitewash, right? Where they would tell the public, hey, you saw a weather balloon, you saw flocks of geese or Venus, the usual suspects, right? Now, ATIP seems to be something where they really were curious and they wanted to find out what they were encountering. And it started after the Nimitz incidents from 2004, October 2004. So the investigation never stopped. We know that now, that there were classified channels. Dr. Hal Puthoff told us this at the Las Vegas SSE conference in 2018, Society for Scientific Exploration. I talked to him extensively at the conference. I mean, he told us that the Bollinger memo clearly said when they stopped Project Blue Book, Brigadier General Carol Bollinger issued this memo. And he said, remember this quote? Reports that affected national security were never part of Project Blue Book, right?
Right.
So that means there was another classified program, which we never found out about, which looked at the real serious stuff, probably the stuff involving nuke sites and all that, the Northern Tier incidents, stuff that really affected our national security, not the random sightings that people would have. So it seems like it's been going this whole time into ATIP, into ATIP and OSAP. And we're told from people like Eric Davis, if you watch any of those interviews that he had with Stephen Greenstreet from the New York Post, you know, the New York Post has gotten into this since the New York Times had their article in 20. Yeah, so on his YouTube interview. Yeah.
Yeah.
Davis said ATIP's still going under another name in the same department at DOD, the intelligence department. Not DIA, but an intelligence department that's responsible to the Secretary of Defense. Mm-hmm. I forgot what it's called, OUDSI or something, whatever that name is. Yeah. And he says he still works for it as a volunteer consultant. So it's still going. And I imagine there are people that are very concerned about what has been taking our missile silos down, what's been interfering with all sorts of operations for several decades now. You guys know about all this, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So, we talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, why do you think? What's the big deal with national security aside?
Space Force.
This ain't all national security issues. So why do you think the big government cover up with half of this? What's your opinion on that?
Governments like to be in control, right? Isn't that really their prime motive for operation is control? Mm-hmm. And we give them this control. We've seen with these riots and protests recently, right? Mm-hmm. Since the George Floyd murder that, was recorded on video, is people are obviously and legitimately questioning what is government here to do. They're certainly not here to murder us. So what's their justification, right? Mm-hmm. And governments have to maintain this appearance of being in control. Now, with regard to UFOs, they've obviously lost control of the airspace. They can't control these objects coming into the atmosphere, doing what they do, coming out of the water, buzzing our planes during flight operations and training exercises for decades now. We've had thousands of these cases of them affecting pilots and military operations, missile sites in the Soviet Union to everywhere. And nobody wants to really admit that this is there because you're basically saying, you know what, folks, this exists and we can't do anything about it. And sometimes it shuts down our missile sites, monkeys around with our electronics, the whole 9 yards. And if we're to believe Richard Doty, who I interviewed at the Laughlin conference last year, about a year and a half ago, he told me, former Air Force Office of Special Investigations, that he was part of a program to create disinformation just to keep UFO researchers away from our own secret technology, not to deny that these UFOs existed. He told me story after story, which are just unbelievable, about what these entities are capable of doing and how they can interfere with our operations and even apparently commit some violent acts sometimes. But we can't do it. He said that we can't do anything about it, and no one knows where they're from. And so I would suggest perhaps they're from our own Earth parallel realities. I mean, I'm just saying that's one possibility. I could be wrong, but I think we have to put that on the table as a possibility. Because,
All right. Dr. Simeon, we're going to come back to you in about 5 minutes.
Sure. I'll be here.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking to Dr. Simeon Hein on S4 tonight. It has been a great first hour. We will be back in about 5 minutes for our second hour. Do not forget, tonight is our last night for the month of May giveaways. We are giving away S4 swag bags. Tonight's winner is going to receive an extra large swag bag. So get your entries in to s4radiowinner@gmail.com. Just send us your paranormal story or experience, and you can be their next winner tonight. So send those in. Here is Poltergeist from Crypt Amnesia.
You are listening to S4 on Spreaker.com.
They say I'm evil, they say I'm dead inside. Check out my ego, cause I'm rotted here tonight. Just burn me like a witch and watch as I catch fire. But I cannot die, I am your poltergeist. Try to kill me, but I cannot die. You try to ignore me, but I haunt you deep inside. You keep trying to kill me, but I cannot die. You try to ignore me, but I haunt you deep inside. They say I'm evil, they say I'm dead inside. Check out my ego, cause I brought it here tonight. Just burn me like a witch, and watch as I catch fire. But not dying, I am your poltergeist, 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 poltergeist. I'll eat your dreams while you immerse in all of your hate. Just waste away like you're destined by your pride. I'll be alive but I'm dead to watch you die. So go ahead and take my life, I dare you to try it. You keep trying to kill me, but I cannot die. You try to ignore me, but I haunt you deep inside. You keep trying to kill me, but I cannot die. You try to ignore me, but I haunt you deep inside. They say I'm evil, they say I'm dead inside. Check out my ego, cause I want it here tonight. Just burn me like a witch, and watch as I catch fire. But I cannot die, I am your poltergeist. Poltergeist, 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 poltergeist. Oh, poltergeist, 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 poltergeist. Oh, you're caving in, the loss of sleep keeps you obsessing on your pride. But in the end, you let me in. They say I'm evil, they say I'm dead inside. Check out my ego, cause I'm rotted here tonight. just burn me like a witch. It launches, I catch fire, but I cannot die. I am your motherfucker. They say I'm evil, they say I'm dead inside. Check out my ego, 'cause I brought it here tonight. Just burn me like a witch, and watch it I catch fire, but I cannot die. I am your poltergeist, 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 poltergeist. Oh, poltergeist, 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 poltergeist.
Welcome back to S4 with your host, Eric Cooper.
And welcome back to S4. We have Dr. Simeon Hein with us tonight for another 30 minutes, and then he's got to go eat some dinner. He's actually on the road. We were fortunate to catch him. So, let's see here. Missing 411. I'm sure you've heard of David Paulides.
Yeah.
What do you think about missing people? Do you think that has to do with some of these time slips? Do you think it's a portal?
Yeah, I think that's one explanation for it. Some of these disappearances are really bizarre. You know, you happens to even groups of hunters, right, who are armed. Normally would not be easy to take out a group of hunters like that and have everything just disappear with no trace, right? So, yeah, and then sometimes you have children who reappear days later, or the people reappear where the search parties have already looked 10 times, or evidence reappears, and that is a very strange subject. And I think that could be one explanation that, yeah, something can see us and we can't see it. I know that's kind of scary, but, you know, there's been cases of this where they heard the person trying to get help and it's coming from up in the air or something, right? In other cases, sometimes, you know, they find clothing in trees and things. Weird. So it's a strange topic, and I think that definitely could have something to do with it, especially when you find that the kids say that, you know, they're found wandering again in the same area. Like, where did they go for that time period, right?
Oh, absolutely. And the ones that are found still alive don't remember anything.
Yeah. There's, again, this is the sort of thing that governments don't like to talk about very much because they don't understand what's going on. And it's a perplexing topic. You sometimes see these signs on the road for trying to find missing hunters and things.
Mm-hmm.
Groups of guys that normally would be able to defend themselves, you know, and just gone without a trace. And so you got to wonder what it is. And it could have something to do with this. I mean, it's strange, and I don't know the answer, but sometimes you get Bigfoot involved with this. Bigfoot seems to be from my point of view, a multidimensional creature. I've talked to Bigfoot witnesses. I've read a lot about Bigfoot stories and so forth, and these creatures seem to be able to kind of show up and disappear in very unconventional ways, which again suggests that they're beings that can visit our reality and go back to theirs and disappear from ours.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. I think they're an interdimensional being. Again, based on the fact that, and I've said this on the show many times, but the fact that you can put game cams up, and again, you have camera manipulation, because you'll see the other wildlife, and then the camera goes white, and you can hear noise in the background that doesn't sound earthly. But as soon as Bigfoot leaves, the camera goes right back to normal. So it's not a technical malfunction. It seems to be an environmental malfunction based on the presence of an interdimensional being.
Right.
Not to mention, when you're following tracks, for example, they just kind of disappear, and there's no trees around for them to climb up.
Right.
And then when you go to the Native American lore, well, you have another story.
No, we were all on peyote. We don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, this is a creature that's been seen all over the place, right?
Yeah.
Even in semi-populated areas. I remember talking to a witness where this Bigfoot creature went right up to their house in Colorado Springs. It was a commune for women, and she was upstairs, and the woman downstairs saw it in the kitchen. This woman upstairs, who I interviewed, heard it in her mind's eye while she was meditating, but saw the whole image of it. And it's exactly what it looked like, according to the woman that had seen it. And then you'd think in a town, wouldn't other people see it in the middle of town?
No, you would.
I mean, yeah, it just nobody else saw it, but this whole house of women saw it. So very strange. Again, lends itself to an interdimensional sort of explanation. And again, 20 years ago, we're talking about parallel realities, interdimensional. You would have said science fiction, right? Well, not anymore. There's very good models to describe interactions of parallel realities. We're just at the beginning stages of understanding this, but again, you've got theories that suggest other realities exist next to ours, and there's interaction. So can they show up? Can some of these ET visitors be visitors from parallel realities that can show up and sort of interact with us? I mean, that could be part of the missing 411. It's just a possibility.
Okay, I'm just going to throw this out here, but there's a lot of people that say that, like, Bigfoot is early man, right? Like,
gigantic.
When you're talking about your parallel dimensions and the fact that they're within different time periods and stuff, couldn't it just be a bleed through of prehistoric time?
That could be a part of the time, but what I'm suggesting, I guess the idea is this, Kayla, is that we had some natural ability to time travel. In other words, if this is how the universe really works, if we really live in a multiverse, there is this natural ability we have to travel in that multiverse, and somehow we lost it as modern Homo sapiens. We don't do that anymore. We need training and RV classes to remember how to do it, even a glimpse of it, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe this is something that this creature already knew how to do. Natural remote viewer, remote influencer, or time traveler, and somehow, whatever reason you want to look in our history, it's a big topic for another show. Did something take this ability away from us, right? As modern humans, we think we're so special, but maybe we are actually deprived. Mm-hmm. We're deprived of some innate ability that the universe bestowed upon hominids a long time ago. That's one way to look at it, and you're correct. Another way to look at it is it's a sort of bleed through. But bleed through can be like physical stuff coming through the wormhole there too. So,
what's interesting about Bigfoot is they show intelligent design. Because I've heard knocks and I've knocked back, and I've had them. I've had them communicate back with more knocks.
Really?
And we've had, how do I even explain it? So we've actually heard knocks too that had tone to them. Kind of like a boom, 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 boom. That was a real unique one. They like music, and I know you play guitar.
Yeah.
So if you go to a hot spot that Bigfoot has been sighted, and you play guitar, you might be gifted with flowers. Because that happened up here.
Wow.
There's a guy that went in the middle of nowhere, and he just wanted to get away, and he played guitar for like 2 or 3 hours, and he left. And he went back the next day, and there was a whole pile of flowers where he had been playing guitar. So something you might want to try.
Yeah.
You might be gifted.
I haven't had this experience yet. I have to be honest. I've had UFO sightings. I mentioned one of them. I've never had an encounter consciously with a Bigfoot entity, but I'm convinced that it's real. And so many accounts and, ordinary people and these beings seem to be able to show up and disappear, and they not leave, like the knocking you're describing, they can interact in an interesting way with us. So they have something to do with us that we don't really understand. I guess you'd have to say that. And then the Native Americans described them too, right? So,
yeah. They describe the hairy man as a guardian, essentially, of the ritual.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yes,
said
and
a million times. If you have thousands of people all over the planet that are exactly describing the same type of things happening, then there has to be some validity to the things that are happening.
Mm-hmm.
I think so, and I think there's a connection to UFO sightings. Now, the way that I sort of look at these things is, do you get this kind of thinning between dimensions that allows multiple phenomena to come through at the same time? Bigfoot, UFOs, hauntings, things like this. Now, I'm not saying that's the only explanation, but there is a Bigfoot UFO connection. But why are both of these phenomena seen in the same place at the same time? I don't know, but if you imagine a wormhole type phenomena, could multiple things come through the wormhole at the same time once the connection's made? I mean, it's certainly...
Why wouldn't they be able to? I mean, it might be rare that they do, but it seems like anything would be able to come through at the time of opening. So
so that's one way to look at it. Is now there's another possibility is that there's some connection between Bigfoot and UFOs. That can be true too. I know there's people that have made that presentation, but it's these phenomena seems to come in groups, and that's why this interdimensional way of looking at it seems to have a lot of, what they call in science, explanatory power. It explains a lot. And in science, you're generally looking for the simplest explanation that explains the most phenomena. It doesn't have to be that way, but that's often the way it is. You're just looking for something really simple, like E equals MC squared, right? You can explain a whole lot with a couple letters and numbers and an equal sign. So it's sort of what we're looking for here is something like that, the E equals MC squared of parallel realities.
Now, what do you think about CERN? Do you think CERN, with the work they're doing underground in Switzerland, is actually helping escalate some of these?
I don't know if that's true. I've heard people say that. Because we're all switching parallel realities anyway from moment to moment. It's usually what we switch to is something that was very similar to where we were before, so it doesn't seem like we've changed anything. I mean, whether CERN could create this kind of doomsday black hole sort of event, right, and shift us into a parallel reality. There's certainly been a lot of good science fiction movies around that. I don't know if it's anything beyond science fiction,
right?
But I know people have made that argument, so I'm aware of the idea behind it. I guess, Eric, if it had happened, we wouldn't know anymore, would we? Because we already shifted into another reality. So we wouldn't know.
I think my main concern, too, is it seems every time they do an experiment, there's an earthquake afterwards.
Yeah, it's not something I'm really familiar with, but I don't know if that's what you would get, but well, anyway, it's certainly it's an idea. I'm not that familiar with it. I'm not sure CERN would cause earthquakes. It's more likely being caused by fracking.
Right, that's true too. That's absolutely true. You don't poison the earth and expect repercussions not to happen. Where was I going?
I watched a movie the other night where there was something kind of like CERN happening.
It was CERN.
It was basically CERN, and it caused fractal spirits to appear in different locations all over the place. It was I can't remember the name of the movie. It was like The Event or something like that. But I mean, if you mess with enough energies and you don't know what you're doing, not saying that they don't think they know what they're doing, but there's certain things that are beyond anybody's comprehension of knowing what would end up happening. So I think
and what you're expressing is a basic idea of physics, symmetry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I didn't want to interrupt you, Kelly. Did I interrupt what you were saying? Or?
Oh, no, not at all. No.
Well, I just want to say something. But the idea behind it is not that far-fetched. It's that if you create a reaction, you're going to get an equal opposite reaction, but it may not come in a way you expect. And symmetry and parity, as it's called in physics, is a very fundamental principle. A female physicist, Emmy Noether, created this idea. She even corrected Einstein. But we don't remember her because back then physics was very, anti-feminist, okay? So she couldn't even get a paid position. But the physicist, the female physicist, invented this idea of symmetries. It's a core principle of physics. And if you do anything, it's really how I work with these, looking at parallel realities and fractals, by the way, is if you change things around, we can talk about this at another time, but it's sort of my idea of what's really going on here. If you change things around in the way we've done with modern societies, there could be effects from other parallel realities that you didn't expect, simply because of symmetry and parity, parity violation and so forth. And this goes back decades that physicists have known that you really, if you don't find particles you're looking for that you expect to see, they've got to be somewhere. And physicists 70 years ago said could be coming from a hidden sector. Yang and Li, Nobel Prize winners, two Chinese scientists that kind of created this idea too about parity, symmetries, and parity. So yeah, it's definitely a potentially real idea. Is that you do something in a big way at subatomic level or a big experiment like CERN, you could get a reaction you didn't expect. There was a science fiction movie I saw about this recently. I forgot the name. It's where they do this and they like lose contact with something, and I forget. It was a whole thing. I think I saw it. I forgot the name of the sci-fi movie, but probably remember it. It was like some effect of CERN. Yeah, whatever it was. It was interesting. It's sort of these. So these things can happen, and my idea, guys, if you want to know my idea about why UFOs have been showing up,
sure,
since we've been experimenting with nuclear weapons, is you've created some pretty big atomic events that some people think maybe the ETs, saw this and got concerned. That could be true.
Oh, absolutely.
But it also could be that you're changing the shape of space-time from these explosions since they're so powerful. Mm-hmm. And it could let other things in that normally would have been kind of kept away from our reality because you've changed the structure of space-time, and maybe things are coming through that you didn't think were going to come through, but that's what happens when you blast holes in space-time. Hello?
Well, some dimensions you don't need to mess with. So my last question...
Yes, exactly.
So I have one more question, and then we're going to let you tell everybody where we can find your books and your websites, and then we'll let you go eat some dinner.
Thank you.
So Halloween seems to be the big time where everyone thinks this veil is thinning and there's more spirit activity. I don't believe that. We ran a team for 12 years, and our caseload never changed. It didn't increase or decrease. So this veil that everyone talks about, do you think that's part of the... it's not really a veil per se, but it's actually the wall between dimensions?
Yeah, it's definitely that idea. I mean, it comes from the Celtic holiday Samhain, right? And some people think it goes back to Atlantis, the destruction of Atlantis. And that what we're remembering is this, time when Atlantis was destroyed in a couple days. So it could be reminiscent of real events that happened a long time ago that we have forgotten about, and we still, remember it that way. But of course, if you have the whole planet acting a certain way, like look at these protests that have spread to Europe from the U.S. just today, right? There's a morphogenic field, or at least it acts like a morphogenic field, right?
Right.
And people start believing in, people celebrate Halloween. It has a real feeling. It certainly feels spooky, doesn't it? And it's just us all pretending. We do this every year. I do it for the kids in New York because I grew up in that area. I go back to Mom's house and do Halloween for them, set the house up. They love it. And it's fun. But it's it represents something, and it represents something real. So...
And absolutely, I think it's more conscious thought. People expect to be freaked out, and that's what brings. It's more of a, you being a sociologist definitely could go into a lot more of that. But we're running out of time, so go ahead and tell everyone where we can find your books and your remote viewing classes and your website.
Oh, sure. You can go either to my blog, newcrystalmind.com. It's my blog where I update it with videos and ideas, newcrystalmind.com or simeonhein.com. And both sites, simeonhein.com or newcrystalmind.com, you can find about, we've got a remote viewing class, as I call it, resonant viewing, coming up June 27th, 28th. It's online. I shifted to online since the virus, and we have had good classes online, 2-day classes. So you can find about that. You can get my books, Opening Minds, Black Swan Ghosts, or Planetary Intelligence on Amazon, or again from my sites, newcrystalmind.com or simeonhein.com. And that's how you can connect with me and take some class. Love to see you in one of my RV classes for 2 days, or just I'll happy to sign a book for me if you want to order it from our site. I also have music too, by the way, and
Excellent.
A great drone sound, aural resonance, which people really love, which creates a very calm kind of cool feeling. It's a cool parallel reality. It makes you feel good. We need that now. So I've got stuff people can check out from either of my sites that way. Sure.
And you can also find Dr. Simeon Hein's information on the S4 website, www.s-4radio.com.
And YouTube, by the way. I'm on YouTube.
You have a YouTube channel.
Simeon Hein. Just go to Simeon Hein, or actually, it was originally called Fractal Friend, and you can still find it that way, Fractal Friend.
All right.
And I post videos about this, and I'm just going to upload another video of guitar because people need to chill. And I'm uploading guitar right now, but feel free to join me on Twitter or YouTube too.
Outstanding.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks. Well, thanks a lot. This is really fun.
Thank you for being on the show, and we will try to get you back for Roundtable, and we'll also do another interview with you probably June, July time frame.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed your perspectives on this, and let's talk again.
Oh, we're just beginning.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Well, you have a good night. Go eat some dinner.
Okay.
And
we'll talk to you again.
All right.
Thank you.
Good.
All right. Night.
Good night. And we are going to call in Joe Algier. So we're going to call in Joe Algier, and he will join us for the next hour and a half of the show.
Ooh, pointy sticks.
Oh, you love Joe and his pointy sticks.
Oh, man. All right. So what are we talking about now?
Oh, Bigfoot.
You want to talk about
Bigfoot?
Bigfoot.
And what's in the world of the bunker?
The world of the bunker.
What's going on in the world of Joe's bunker?
Come on, Joe.
That's the new S4 music. Come on, Joe, pick up. Hey, how's the world of the bunker going, Joe?
Oh, the bunker's doing great. It's fireproof,
Good.
Joe.
Hey now,
All right, so we just hung up with Dr. Simeon Hein. Awesome guest. We'll definitely have him back. So what's your perspective, Joe, on... have you ever thought about parallel universes?
Parallel universes?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. I don't know. Coming into this cold, I just got the call. Yeah, it's possible they're out there. The physicists say it's theoretical. But, I can't imagine that there's a parallel universe out there where I married Jessica Alba. Okay? It's not going to happen.
Hey, I believe in you, Joe.
Absolutely.
Well, there is a photo of me in a mirror behind her. I'll have to share that to you guys one of these days. She took a selfie, and someone showed up in a mirror behind her, and there's a whole bunch of people sent it to me, and they were saying, it looks just like you.
It was your doppelganger.
Well, I don't think it was my doppelganger. I was thinking more along the lines of I astrally traveled, didn't know it. She caught me on film. I don't know if I can trademark that or not, but...
Astral mirror travel?
That's kind of different.
That's scary.
Mirror travel.
Well, mirrors themselves can be portals, but...
Exactly. So I was astrally traveling using a mirror as a portal in an alternate universe.
There you go. So, in your honor, we are actually going to make a video to post on our website of how to actually sharpen a pointy stick.
Oh my God! It's about time.
Right?
You would not believe how many people get it wrong.
we'll probably get it wrong in your perspective, but we're going to try. And
if we go into that too much on the show, it's going to become a porno, just so you know.
I'm just going to get a big pencil sharpener, right, and just right around.
You know, I have to give Eric some props. If you do the video, you have to throw it in there, because he came up with an idea I never had, and that's the titanium-tipped pointy stick.
We will make one. We will design one.
Okay, we might be able to like design one, but it's going to be like aluminum foil, because I can't really afford that much titanium right now.
That's not going to work against a werewolf.
No, but aliens, we got it covered.
We do. Aliens bleed.
Well, for the people that don't understand, is like, I don't have an obsession with pointy sticks, but I really like them. The thing is, it's come up a lot in all the talks of the paranormal people. You know, someone will come on the show and they'll talk about werewolves. How do you kill them? Blah, blah, blah. Pointy stick. And then someone will come on the next week and they'll be talking about vampires. How do you kill them? Well, a pointy stick.
Yeah.
You know, how do you kill an alien? A pointy stick. The pointy sticks come up all the time. They don't run out of bullets.
Nope.
They're easy to make. They're everywhere.
You don't have to reload them.
You know, and it's everywhere from a toothpick to a pencil to a 6-foot spike to, you know, a log.
And what's funny is if you break one...
Look at Arnold Schwarzenegger in the movie Predator. What did he use? It was a big pointy stick. It was kind of dull on the end, but he used it to swing out and smash the Predator. That's what took him out. It was a dull stick, but...
Well, you know, if you break your pointy stick, you just resharpen it and use it again.
Okay, that's going to be our next.
You turn it around and use the other end.
There you go.
Pointy sticks versus rocks.
Wait,
we got this.
The double-ended pointy stick.
The double-ended pointy stick.
Yeah.
Nobody expects the double-ended pointy stick.
No. You can use it either way. You can swing backwards with it and still kill what's coming up behind you. And then, thrust it forward. It's
okay, so like the Darth Maul of pointy sticks.
If we're going to do pointy sticks versus rock, I've seen you throw a watermelon rind. We're going to win.
Oh, yes, Dennis, the ninja pointy stick. I like it. So, be watching for that video. We'll probably do that video here in the next 2-3 weeks. Because we actually have a video to upload still.
Yeah,
it's going to be a while. It's going to be a while.
Yeah, and that's fine.
We'll probably start uploading sometime middle of June, or July, sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so be watching for our mini videos for S4 on the website. We'll be doing one once a week.
We also are on FMP, the group, Forceman Paranormal. We are doing Versus. So every week there will be a new Versus. So
what is it this week?
This week it is a gray alien versus
the black-eyed
children. And who would win
so
in this battle?
We want to know in the comments on that thread, who would win and what reason do you have?
The Greys versus the black-eyed children. What do you think, Joe? Who would win?
I think they're the same thing. I think the black-eyed children are just Greys in disguise.
Ooh.
Think about it. Black eyes? Come on. I'll wait a second for you guys to put that together.
No, but here's the thing. Grace is going to your house and abduct you. Black-eyed children have to knock on the door and ask to come in.
All right, but look at it this way.
So in this scenario, are the black-eyed children knocking on the door of the spaceship asking to come in? And the Greys get fooled?
Right, and then the Greys abduct them, and then the black-eyed children win, right? That's what I said.
Jesus.
We never hear the stories about what happens when someone does let them in.
That's because they die.
They're dead, and they can't tell the story.
They get killed.
Yes.
So have you seen the video that's circulating in Texas? There's a guy that took a video, and you can see this object in the sky. It's not a UFO. And you hear it keeps making a scream in the background. Have you seen that video yet?
I saw the one in Scotland.
No, there's one in
Yeah,
Texas.
so this one's in Texas, and it literally sounds like a woman screaming bloody murder. Someone tried to say it was that trumpets thing, air or sky trumpets. And
Wait. What was the lady screaming? Someone videotaping, or was the lady screaming? Was that sound coming from the
It was
thing in
coming
the sky?
from the sky.
That sound, I've analyzed that video over and over again, and it's literally it sounds like it's coming from the clouds, and there's lightning in the background where it's
Is it on
coming
your
from.
website?
I could probably find it and post it in the group.
Yeah, I'm checking right now.
It's on
not
YouTube.
in the group.
It's on YouTube. But what's interesting is during the day before this happened, there were F-15 fighter jets flying around that neighborhood.
I'm telling you, I still think that it was a Thunderbird.
I had a T-38 go over my house today, so no big deal.
Right?
I mean, low. Blew the leaves off trees. Low.
Oh, wow.
That's a
And
little terrifying.
we will find that video. That's a very ominous scream. I don't know if they have hyenas in. I don't think they have hyenas in Texas.
In Texas?
Yeah, no.
Texas hyena? Maybe Harley Quinn let it flee.
But
Love Harley Quinn.
Right.
But
She's my idol.
Hyenas can sound like that, but hyenas aren't in Texas. And
There might be.
It might
There
be
could be
now.
some hyenas there.
But what's interesting is, it did sound like it was coming from the sky. And you saw it. You saw eyes.
Yeah,
You saw eyes in the clouds.
Yeah, I actually in the area that he was filming of the sky, it did every once in a while appear to have two darkened centers that looked like eyes coming out of it every time it screamed.
And again, thank you, Dennis. Dennis found it.
Oh, hey.
Oh, yeah, so it's in the chat room.
Jumped on my bike and I'm trying to hunt the sound down.
Well, I wanted to get the scream.
Well, go ahead. Here. Let's
So
listen to
here's the video.
It's coming from so far back there, but it's so loud.
That's the scream. If the microphone's picking it
Never
up,
heard anything like that.
It is, but it went Predator at the end there.
huh?
But now it sounds like bearings, Right now here, it's gonna scream. That is so freaking loud.
Anyway, that's the scream he's talking about. Could you hear that, Joe?
Yeah, I'm looking for it on YouTube. Just
It's
look
in
under
the chat room.
S4?
It's in the chat room. Yeah.
I can't get in the chat room. I'm on a borrowed computer, and they want to send me a
Okay. hold
instant
on.
message on my chat to make sure that I'm the person I'm saying, and I can't do it because my phone's
I
dead.
got you.
Oh, okay.
So I will send it to you on Facebook real quick so you can actually watch the video while you're in the show.
All right.
I do gotta say, congratulations to SpaceX, by the way. They docked this morning to the ISS.
Yes.
Yeah,
Did
way
they?
to go, Bob and Doug.
You finally got it up?
Yep, they made it there.
Yeah,
Their
I
GPS worked out great.
actually sat there and I watched the whole thing from the time that they got suited up to the time that they shot off and docked this morning. So, well, I mean, I slept in between there.
She watched all the important parts.
Yep. It's interesting.
But the spacesuits that they used are just hilarious.
They are. It's like a little bodysuit. Like they just regular clothes with a little helmet.
They can actually move now.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a spacesuit.
No.
Well, it was a spacesuit,
They no longer
but it's
require
the new
as
kind of
much
spacesuit.
padding or as much
Protection.
yeah.
Well, it's kind of like the difference in the original diving gear versus the diving gear that we have now.
Oh, I'd still trust the original.
Right.
Right. So you no longer have to get into this big metal helmet and go underwater and have it leak and everything. Now all you got to do is strap a little bit of oxygen on you and call it good.
But with that happening,
Yeah, but with the big metal helmet, you were able to breathe regular oxygen as opposed to the stuff in the tanks.
Truth. That's it.
Yeah.
But then you had to have a cord, and there was all kinds of other stuff. I mean,
Yeah, about 150 pounds extra, and yeah.
we also did find the most entertaining show yesterday, and I watched the entire first season.
you
Oh,
did.
Because I had to.
Oh my god.
What show's that?
Netflix has a new show called Space Force.
Oh, yeah, I saw the commercials for it.
It was really, really funny.
Isn't that the guy from The Office?
Yeah, it's Steve Carell.
Yeah.
Oh,
Fred. It is one of actually my favorite Netflix shows this year.
So are they going after aliens?
No.
No?
It's the U.S. versus China.
and trying
good God.
to build a base on the moon first and all
Yeah.
that jazz.
Boots on the moon by 2024.
Might not be so far off.
Yeah, you know what? Like, everything that they've shown in this show is making fun of everything that, like, that's been happening lately. With the Space Force in, like, formal announcements from the White House are now through tweets only.
Right. Well, that's kind of what happens now.
Why not?
Sure.
You know what I love? People will tweet complaining about the White House tweeting.
Right.
If you think about how ironic that is,
Right.
everybody tweets, no one cares. Well, I don't tweet. Ha!
I was just saying, I just got a Twitter account like 2 days ago for the first time ever, and I haven't posted or tweeted anything yet, but still, it exists.
I don't even use mine. It's there. If I post on Facebook, it goes straight to my Twitter account, but
I don't use mine either.
I don't use it.
Izzy yells at me for it because it's actually the show's. I try, guys. I try.
Oh.
Joe, did you get a chance to look at that yet?
Yes, I've looked at the video, but I cannot get the volume up on this laptop
Yeah.
that I've borrowed. And
So
the video doesn't show much.
No, and the sound is very quiet on it. Which always scares me because I think it's one of those ones that's just going to start screaming at me like really loud. Like one of those ones you're not supposed to listen to at work.
Right. I got to say, though, 2020 has just been one of those years. That
2020, written by Stephen King, directed by Quentin Tarantino.
Absolutely.
Oh, Jesus. Well, then I hope it's not an M. Night Shyamalan ending. Okay.
That's the strange part. There's so much other crap happening in the world this year that, like, there is amazing stuff happening in the paranormal world, and no one cares.
Yeah.
There have been some amazing video footage come out on UFOs, on ghosts, on everything.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all
No one gives a damn.
overshadowed because
But
this
you
has
know
been
why?
so screwy.
Because what you see in the paranormal is a lot of them aren't talking about the paranormal. They're talking about politics, and they're fighting amongst each other. And the paranormal field, a lot of the investigators, not a majority of them, just a lot of the ones I don't expect are talking more about the riots. They're talking more about COVID. They're talking more about Trump versus Biden or the Democrats versus the Republicans. And so much for the paranormal field.
Yeah, like honestly, I still love a lot of the stuff that's coming up on Forest Moon Paranormal. Like Kayla posted one the other day. Neil Armstrong was the first person to land on the moon. Neil backwards is alien. And then it has a thing that says from the message from the FBI underneath it says delete that right now.
Right.
Like the stuff
of
like that. I
censorship.
like that. Because it does kind of make you think.
Well, none of this crap started until we decided to raid Area 51. I'm not saying it. Okay? But just gonna throw that out there.
What do you guys think?
Next year they're going to raid S4, and they're going to be a couple of dummies out there going to screw up and end up there in concrete.
Oh, I kind of resemble that remark.
I don't want them raiding my house. S4!
Come on down, guys.
Oh,
I'll throw something on the barbecue. We'll have a party.
Yeah.
Occupy S4.
And it'll get busted for not social distancing, but that's okay.
Dear God, I hope not by then. Jesus.
26.
2026?
No, he said bring out the
26, help with social distancing.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think?
I try not to do
Okay.
that much.
I'm trying to think.
But okay, I want to go back to something that Dr. Simeon Hein said, because I never got to talk, really.
I know it.
And that happens. It was cool. But with the whole crop circle thing, I kind of adjusted my whole theory on them. Because my years, like my year and a half on the show, I have talked about it a few times. And I've always said that it's like, to me, crop circles are like Google roadmaps of space. For anyone that's has ever played a computer RPG open world game,
okay.
It almost feels now like, with what everyone's saying and with the discovery of actual paranormal universes by scientists and everything.
Right.
Even though that's probably going to be disproven next month.
By somebody.
Yeah. Maybe they're waypoints.
Are you talking like spawn points?
Kind of. So,
okay.
No, not like spawn points, but like they're on open world games, there are areas where you can click on them and you can actually jump to that area without time being spent.
Oh, okay. All right, I get what you're saying. That's weird.
Jump points is what I would say.
So, if you... Because there's residual afterwards. There's always something residual afterwards that stays at that area.
So if you
So are we getting into like this world is like the Matrix and those are like the jump points for...
No, I mean full within space jump points for like beyond light speed travel.
I think it's a variation of an alien Google Maps.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But like I'm thinking like part of it is we are a jump world.
Okay, so that's basically like this destination.
Because otherwise we should be seeing these circles, like the crop circles, on other planets as well. You don't have to have a crop to have a circle.
But I think they have. I think they have found... so that's why I asked about geoglyphs. If geoglyphs were another variation of crop circles. Because there are geoglyphs on Mars.
Right.
And on the Moon. What's your thoughts, Joe?
Well, there's a hexagon on Saturn.
Oh man, I'm having trouble hearing you right now. I've got people just showed up here at the bunker. Give me a second.
Get the pointy sticks out.
Technical difficulties.
Are they welcome guests?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. Because we've talked about crop circles on the show before, like a year ago, and I am still stuck on the possibility that there are. So waypoints, yeah, I agree with that, especially after Dr. Hein's comments about the energy and how the energy of the actual shape alters things. But I do think they're markers as well for specific resources.
So so what I'm understanding from what he was saying is they're like more like extraterrestrial sigils then. Like they have certain properties and powers to each of the symbols, right?
But you're talking multiple races.
Right. Well, wouldn't every race have its own sigils and its own design to it?
Because have you seen...
Okay, a quick thing. The crop circles. Couldn't it be if the aliens are time travelers? The crop circles are simply a point where they make a certain symbol so that when someone's going back in time, they look and they go, okay, there's that symbol. They look at their map and they match them up and they go, oh, it's 1984. You know, and then they know where they're at.
That's a good...
Because every year there's crop circles in the fields, but they're always different, right?
Absolutely.
Well, whatever year you show up, you're going to know. You jump in time, you don't know where the hell you're at.
Nope.
So that would be like a time point.
Time point.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's actually a
road
good
signs.
thought.
So when we have Dr. Hines back, you're going to come on the show and bring that up too.
Okay.
Friend.
I have a hard time with time travel.
What's a hard concept to wrap around?
Well, it's not so much that time travel doesn't exist in my mind, but I don't think that an actual physical being can time travel. Okay? I have a hard time with that. I think your consciousness can time travel.
Right.
But I think that you need a body...
Your physical body would be
in
torn
that
apart.
time. Yes. So I think that you can maybe consciously jump from time to time, but within other people's bodies or other people's thoughts. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that you could physically take a human being, put them through that much, and have them come out at the end exactly the same.
No, because your atoms would be torn apart.
Right.
Okay, if that's the deal, then what happens to your body while you're time traveling? Do you have somebody stay behind to watch it and make sure nobody touches it and does untoward things?
Well, if you think about it, anytime that somebody is going astral, for instance,
Yeah,
right,
it'd be the same thing as astral.
you'd be laying on a couch, you'd be wherever you are. There's a lot of people that miss amounts of time in their everyday life where they said, whoa, it was weird, like, it was 3:30 and I was here, and then at 5:30, for some reason, I was way over here. Okay, we put that down to being alien or other worldly type things, but could it potentially be you're being taken over consciously?
But that's remote viewing. Like Izzy just said, it's remote viewing rather than physical transport.
Well,
right.
There was that one thing I saw the other day on Facebook where it said, anytime you walk through a door and lose complete thought of what you were doing.
Oh, the alien?
Yeah. It's an alien who just took a part of your time.
That was Doctor Who.
That was Doctor Who. But hey,
Or you walked in on the Men in Black.
Yeah, think about how many times it's been used. There's got to be some semblance of truth.
It was the memory eraser.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But like,
Flashy
could it
thing.
be a possibility that there is an alien in that room at that point and that you saw them? So guess what? You no longer remember what you saw.
Oh my, that's my father-in-law all the time. He walks in the house for a cup of rice and forgets why he came in the house.
If that
Well, okay,
is
sometimes it's like just old age. I get that too.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like
I do think, since the existence of CERN and the experiments they do underground does slowly erode away. That's a totally different scenario. Yeah, absolutely. That's just old age. But I do think certain experiments, nuclear bomb testing, CERN experiments, things of that nature, I do think they damage more than they are good.
Well, yeah, we all need to take Dr. Ian Malcolm's advice. Don't ask if you could, ask if you should.
Right?
Yeah, but okay, if you think about the atomic bomb...
Yeah, but that had to do with dinosaurs eating you.
I think we should start applying it to everything in life.
Mm-hmm.
I should have thought about that before that whole marriage thing.
What?
No.
Yeah, okay, you can throw something at her now.
Get out.
But, like the sun, okay, for instance, we have solar flares all the time, right? Well, solar flares are the equivalent of how many atomic bombs going off? Okay. So if we look at it that way, wouldn't every single time that we have a solar flare or we have something of that nature happen, that would also be ripping through this space-time continuum thing that we've been talking about, right? So how would that be any more devastating us than the ones that are naturally occurring?
Hey, if the sun is so hot, how come space is so cold?
Well, I'm sure that the corona of the sun and the space around it is pretty darn warm too.
I'm cold all the time. I don't want to go to
Has
space.
corona.
The sun has a corona. Jesus.
That's a good beer.
Totally different type of corona.
The sun's been tested. It has corona.
Yeah.
I want to bring something to the table because I don't know if it's paranormal or not.
What?
So the other day, Kayla looked at me and said, "What the hell's wrong with your face?" And I didn't understand what she meant. Nothing felt weird, nothing. And apparently I have 5 really fairly deep scratches on my face.
Yeah, but they're like little kitty scratches.
Yeah.
They aren't like...
They're not
I went
wide.
over and
They're
ripped
just,
his face
they feel
apart.
deep.
S-4
And I have
radio.
no idea where they came from because I was thinking about sleeping. There is nothing on my bed that can actually do that to me.
And there are 5 of them?
Yeah, so
Look at his face.
they cross
He looks
over.
all
Like I've got 4,
Dark.
and
Oh,
then
sorry.
they cross. One crosses over the rest of them,
Well, you got some on the other side, too.
and now I got more on the other side.
But that didn't come until yesterday. The other side.
But it's while I'm sleeping.
I swear, I'm not scratching him with a scratch pad in his sleep. Cha.
When you go to the strip club, the rule is never touch the strippers.
They say that, but they don't mean it.
Wait, what about this strip club?
It's closed.
Not in Oregon.
How do you know it's closed?
COVID. It's closed.
Not in Oregon.
Not in Oregon?
No, in Portland they have a drive-through strip club right now.
Seriously?
Yes.
A drive-through street? Oh, God.
Watch from the privacy of your own car. Only
Yeah,
$200
That's the truth. I saw that on TV.
Dang. So where do you go first? Do you go through the drive-through mixed drink station? Then you go through the drive-through stripper?
Well, they have like little tents, and you drive through and you sit there for a minute and you watch them and they dance on the pole in the tent and then you throw some change out the window and you move on.
Change out the window?
Wow. Okay.
Welcome to the new world.
Essential services.
Uh-huh.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All right. So with that, we're going to go to our last break, and when we come back, we will carry on with more fun talk.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here is Hell Within from Cryptamnesia.
You are listening to S4 on Spreaker.com.
than a villain. What your ship has not yourself. You cannot change the past, but you might learn from it. It's up to you to fight, to exercise your demon light. Your chaos deep inside burns through your skin. Release your hell with it. Your eyes black as the night fell victim to your hell with it. Look at you now, look at you now. The demons ripping at your soul. And now the devil's in control. Your chaos deep inside burns through your skin. Your eyes black as the night fell victim to your hell with it. Look at you now, look at you now. The demons ripping at your soul. And now the devil's in control.
Welcome back to S-4 with your host, Eric Cooper.
And welcome back to S4. So we are going to be reading our last story for the month. Thank you to everybody who contributed the stories for the competition, the contest, and then we will be doing our drawing for, well, the big prize of the month.
Yep.
And we are going to have another competition. I'm not going to go into it right now. We'll start pushing that for July.
I'm excited about that.
I am too.
Yeah.
That's going to be a fun one.
Right.
All right, this one's from Patricia. Before moving to Washington, we lived in California on a farm where when we first moved in, little things would come up missing. Then we would find them a couple of months later in weird places. The last year we lived there, my husband woke up one morning with scratches on his neck. Sounds familiar. They all disappeared except one, which over months moved from one side of his neck to the other. This scratch stayed on his neck for 9 months. We also had an attic that covered the whole house, but you couldn't get to it except from outside of the house. There was a window that you could see from the outside of the house. We noticed handprints on the window, which was strange. One day we noticed that the window was broken from the inside of the attic because the glass was on the outside of the house. We had so much activity in the house, their doorbell would ring with no one there. The house set back on a dirt road about 2 miles from the main road. Eventually they decided to move to Washington, and the scratches went away and the activity stopped. She did also send pictures, guys, but I can't share them. I don't feel comfortable sharing it as it actually shows his face and everything, so we're just going to leave those out. But you can actually see the scratch, the 3 pictures that she took, where it moved across his neck, and it's the same scratch, like it is the exact same size, positioning.
So I like to analyze stories. It sounds to me like you said, Faye. Mm-hmm. So I'd be curious more if they did landscaping at the point in time, if they cut trees down, anything like that would disturb the Fae. Unless it's Gray's first, like a Gray who had his first time abducting and putting in the implants, and they just had to keep breaking him in. Kept putting in the implant in the wrong place.
Now, it really sounds like Fae to me, is what it sounds like. Yeah. That would even honestly describe the window and everything else.
Yeah.
Would be a Fae breaking out of their attic. I mean...
Yeah. Possible. So, now we are going to do our drawing for our grand prize winner.
Dun, 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 dun.
So everyone's name has been put back in. Jill, you won again. Congratulations. You are getting a double box, which is awesome. And
do we have her address?
We do have her address, and I haven't gotten a chance to go into town, so probably this week I will go into town and I'll send you everything all at once. Thank you, everyone who participated. We still have a few more stories to tell over the next few weeks, so we'll continue doing that for a little bit. But eventually what will take over is our questions on the Forest Moon Paranormal Facebook group of who versus who.
Yeah, we are going to do a little segment on who versus who, and not like Doctor Who, like battle.
And aren't we starting a blog on the website too?
We are starting a blog on the website, and we'll be uploading our little videos that teach you how to do different things. So keep an eye on that. It's going to be ever changing and updating. Yeah.
Things progress.
Absolutely. Oh, and if you haven't had a chance yet, go check out the merchandise that we have on our website.
www.s-4radio.com.
Yep.
For all the information on the show, if you want to be a sponsor of the show, we're always looking for businesses that want to advertise and sponsor.
Absolutely, and all of our merchandise is one of a kind, designed by either Izzy or myself.
Or Cole.
Or Cole. Cole has an apron in there.
Get the
apron.
That is
true.
Buy the apron now.
So, Joe, you're a geologist. What? Mm-hmm. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all you have to do is set up a fairy altar.
Just appease the fairies. Make sure that they know that this is something that you're doing and that you're still okay with them being on your property.
Yeah. They don't eat meat. Well, some of them do. It depends on the some.
Most likely a burr.
No, set out cake and honey. Yep. Set out some cake and honey.
I'm sorry. All that reminded me of was that Congo. Stop eating my sesame cake.
Right. So, I want to get to you as a geologist. We all know there's a commonality with missing 411 that a lot of it happens around shale. I believe it is. Mm-hmm. Yep. Granite. There you go. So is granite an energy magnifier? Okay. Right. Right. Mm-hmm.
So what's the properties of limestone? So with limestone, which is still energy, though. Absolutely.
Okay, well then I'm going to take it like one step further there just because.
Mm-hmm.
So if there is a correlation between granite and between more paranormal activity or more paranormal things happening, maybe the reason that we've seen so many spirits and entities in people's houses now is because we all do granite countertops.
That would be something to ask. That'd be something that paranormal teams should ask in their initial questionnaires: is what kind of materials is the construction of
right,
your home?
because I mean they didn't do that back in like the 70s, back in the 60s. You didn't have granite countertops.
I want granite countertops, but they're so damn expensive.
They are.
But no, that's a good point. If there's crystal and granite, then again, that's going to be a potential.
Are you just, by putting that in, opening some form of a doorway in that particular area? So, because we have a lot of sightings from people that say that it's been in the kitchen. We have a lot of sightings from people that say they've seen something in the bathroom. Well, where are your primary granite countertops? Yeah, no, definitely.
Huh. Okay. Sorry. Apparently you were muted, Joe.
Oh shit!
It's Kayla's fault.
So was it an apparition? Did it look physical?
It was almost like a combination somewhere between smoke and cotton. It looked like if I reached out and grabbed it, I could have probably touched it.
Huh. It was only 2.5 foot tall?
Yeah, it's almost the same thing as like from an elbow to a shoulder. About that big around and about that long, and it just went through the room really fast. And it wasn't smoke or anything like that. In fact, it was a hot night, and the fans were blowing from the kitchen into the living room, so it would have been going against the wind.
Huh.
And it was solid. It wasn't a reflection on the wall behind me. It was in the middle of the room, right where someone would walk through.
So could you see a face or just part of the body?
I just saw part, like I said, I'm guessing is like part of an arm, like from a shoulder down to an elbow. If that was flickering in and out of our space, that's all I saw. And it moved, and it was quick, like someone was walking quickly. And it was vertical, straight up and down. It's like not like an arm move, but I'm just guessing the arm thing is
like
kind of a good reference for people to think about.
Like
from your shoulder down to the elbow.
Right, so like the arm swing of somebody walking. Swinging their arms.
Yeah.
Okay, can you honestly imagine, though, if this is like a time type thing, like a loop or can you imagine being the person whose arm that actually was? Like, you're just walking and all of a sudden half of your arm is gone?
Well, maybe they're just fine, but that's all that we're seeing on our plane of existence, if you want to put it that way. Right. I mean, I wasn't scared of it. I wasn't afraid. In fact, I said hello. I talked to it for a while. I figure if there's somebody there, I'm going to talk to them.
Right.
A lot of weird things happen around here, but I've never felt anything evil or bad or something like that.
Did you say, welcome to Joe's bunker?
No, I think it's somebody that knows. If it's somebody that's here, they know me.
Right.
They know where they're at.
And I still think, so 2.5 foot tall, I'm still thinking Faye.
Yeah, it was, but it was 2.5 foot tall, what I saw.
Right.
But it was up high. It was like a 6 foot tall person. You know, It was up that high. It was up in the middle of the room, like a 6 foot tall person walking by, and you just saw that one piece going through the room.
Huh.
It was like you couldn't see the rest of them, but you could see that part, and it was kind of a combination between smoke and cotton.
Right.
But it was solid. It was solid, and the lights were on. You know.
Absolutely. So, huh.
I don't have granite countertops.
But you collect.
But I've got
rocks,
granite.
right?
I'm surrounded by it. I've got huge boulders. I'm looking at them right now. I'm sitting outside. I can see them. This whole place, it's Sierra granite.
Mm-hmm. I think granite's part of the equation here.
Maybe.
You know, the thing with Pilates, just a weird thought I had one night listening to his stories. A lot of these disappearances happen in national parks.
Right.
Now, national parks are places that the government says, all right, here's this huge area, no building, no roads. You can go visit it, but you have to leave. Maybe that's because they know that there's something there, and they're basically keeping most people out. But they allow a few in because they have to. And if a few disappear, well, that's part of the deal.
They know something's going on based on, when Paulides when Paulides first got into this and did his information, his request for information, Freedom of Information Act, at first they said they don't keep records. And he kept persisting, and it changed from we don't keep records to, well, for $4 million, we'll give you blah, So, no, they keep records. They know what's going on. They just keep it covered up. There's
something going on.
There's no doubt. And the fact that you can't fly drones over national forest. Why not? What are you hiding? You can't tell me you can't tell me it's ruining the environmental aspect. No, it's not. Drones aren't ruining anything.
Okay, but the FCC, like the rules with drones have changed drastically in the last couple of years because of privacy laws and everything. You're not allowed to fly your drone over someone else's yard. National forests are Bigfoot's yard.
There you go.
But
have you?
Sorry.
Well, okay, Bigfoot in the national parks. How about this? Here's something I'll throw out there. They had watched the show on it the other day about when St. Helens went up.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And there was a guy they were interviewing. Says he was part of a group with the National Guard that was told to drive a truck for some shady characters in the military that showed up, and they were going around to different areas, and they were picking up Bigfoot bodies, and they had one that wasn't dead.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And they had somebody there that could supposedly talk to it.
Yeah, that was in 1980, and they took the bodies to Fort Lewis.
Yeah.
Could you imagine being the doctor and having that come in? And they're just like, fix them.
Oh, they knew about it. So there's a part of Fort Lewis.
Yeah, they knew all about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so they supposedly kept the bodies and the living Bigfoot at Fort Lewis for like 2 weeks, and then they flew it to a lab in California. And I can't remember where in California this lab is, but there's parts of there's 10,000 acres of training ground on Fort Lewis, and there's parts of Fort Lewis, especially over by Old Madigan. I've explored all over Old Madigan. There's an elevator. So Old Madigan is was built in, I believe, the 1950s, and it was actually where they brought Vietnam vets in that got injured by the war. It's an all one-floor hospital. There's
with an elevator.
There's an elevator that goes down. I've seen the elevator. I'm like, So, weird. It's a one-floor hospital. Why is there an elevator?
Supply room. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Well, probably. I'm sure they did all kinds of experiments and crap down there, too.
Oh, yeah.
I never... yeah.
Okay, so when you guys are bringing up, like, the national parks and how you can only go into certain areas of national parks and they're only open from certain time to certain times and all that, right? Well, have you ever seen the show The Village?
Oh, yeah.
The movie,
yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
So, what if it's basically that concept, except it's Bigfoot instead of another village of, like, human beings? And maybe we have some kind of treaty with him where it's like, hey, you don't come on my land, I don't eat your people,
Well, it could be Bigfoot. It could be, some of them may be Bigfoot, some of them may be alien bases, some of them may be government facilities.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a genius idea.
Have you ever
you don't want people building and having 7-Elevens right here? Well, let's call it a national park.
Hey, I like 7-Eleven. They have good coffee. So there's this group in. Damn it.
Where's the
Was that damn it, Colorado?
Yeah. No, I'm trying to remember Yelm.
Yelm? Like Yelm, Washington?
Yelm, Washington.
Okay.
And they're called the Romptons. And we've talked about them on the show before, but they believe in reptilians that live under Mount Rainier.
Oh, right. I heard. Yes. Yeah.
Now, they believe there's tunnels under Mount Rainier. Now, okay, it is a volcano, so I'm sure there's, lava tunnels and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But what if there's tunnels that go from Mount Rainier to Old Madigan?
Well, I mean, look at our Earth. There's tunnels everywhere. Mm-hmm. Okay, like anybody who's listened to any of our shows with Barry on them, there's tunnels all over Kentucky. There's old tunnels that they run into when they're digging for the subways in New York. Mm-hmm. There's tunnels everywhere. It's a whole system of tunnels that run under our Earth.
We need to have a show on underground bases, by the way.
Antarctic.
And the tunnel systems. Oh, yeah, Antarctica is a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, is not solid.
Who's to say that there isn't some form of creature or something that lives in these tunnels? It'd be a damn waste of space if there wasn't.
Aliens live in them. I mean, J-Ron, yes, lots of docs. If you want a source to look up documents, go to blackvault.com. And I think his name is John Greenwald, and he runs Black Vault, and we need to have him on the show as well.
I like Greenwald.
Yep. He takes the Freedom of Information Act, and he gets all the UFO and alien and conspiracy documents and uploads them to blackvault.com. So make sure you check out Black Vault. Very good source. Very good resource. Another one that we need to...
As far as the tunnels go, they're everywhere. There's tunnels, there's cave systems, there's so much underground that we've never even seen. But there's also man-made stuff. Like where I'm at, I'm in the heart of the gold country in California. There are hundreds of miles of abandoned gold mines just littering this area.
Absolutely.
And who knows what's living down there?
And yeah, so Cheyenne Mountain is actually where NORAD. I think NORAD, is it NORAD in Cheyenne Mountain?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's a big old cave and tunnel that they blasted out, and the buildings themselves are on these gigantic springs. It's kind of an engineering marvel.
And I'm sure there's tunnels that go from Cheyenne Mountain probably to S-4.
Oh, well, that's just ridiculous. What'd you bring in?
I don't know about that. It's possible, but...
You know what's interesting, too, is so I was watching Ancient Aliens the other night, a couple weeks ago. And what's interesting is, I know everyone's heard of the all the weird paintings on the walls of the Denver airport.
Yeah.
Supposedly, they got taken down. They took down all the paintings.
Okay.
Well, after 20 years of people freaking out about them, I would have painted over those things, too.
Well, yeah. I mean, come on now. You got a guy with a gas mask and a bunch of kids around him.
Yeah.
I mean,
the guys that look like Nazis with gas masks bayoneting children. Yeah, that's a great image for an airport.
Right?
But the gum wall's okay.
Huh?
The Seattle gum wall's okay. Come on. Really?
Yeah, but what's curious to me with the Denver airport, what inspired that kind of painting to begin with?
The fact that they built Denver Airport is that was the secondary place in case something bad happens in the United States, nuclear war, who knows.
Yeah,
that airport, it's an international airport in the middle of the country, and it has more parking spaces for planes that could ever just happen to be there for commercial traffic.
So
in other words, all the bigwigs from all over the world can fly in there, park their plane, go underground, and hide.
Yeah,
the place is huge.
So, do you remember years ago, all these theories about the oceans rising, and pretty soon Colorado and Arizona are going to be oceanfront property because the whole West Coast is going to be underwater?
There's a song about that.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they were preparing for that when they built these underground facilities in Denver. You think?
No.
No.
No?
No.
I just had to throw it out there.
My favorite, there's a picture, it's somewhere down on the Florida coast, and they've got a picture that was taken from one of the first airplanes that ever flew over. It was like in 1910 or something. Who knows when it was. Somewhere right about in there. And it showed the beach and everything. And then it showed a picture taken like 3 years ago. And you know what? The ocean level hasn't risen one bit. Every beach that was there then is there now. The ocean levels aren't rising. Greta Thunberg isn't going to be our queen.
Thank God.
Oh, my God. That'd be terrible.
The polar bears are not starving.
No?
No.
Good.
Nope, they're eating Inuits.
I can sleep better tonight.
In fact, most polar bears aren't over on the ocean anyway. They're over near Hudson Bay.
Huh.
What? I need to find, so I'm going to say this again. I've said this before. If you are listening to the show and you work in the government and you know where this, United States government ancient races book or ancient aliens book is, please send it to me.
You ain't gonna find it's in the Vatican. Come on, you know that this is somewhere. Okay, maybe not the Vatican, but you know that this is somewhere where you aren't going to ever get access
it's
to it.
Underneath the Pentagon. We all know that.
Why you always got to blame the Catholics?
Right, it's under
the
the Pentagon.
What's the issue with us?
I don't have an issue with you per se.
We need to get under the Pentagon, Joe.
Been there.
You've been there. You seen the ancient...
Sure, why not?
What?
Hasn't everybody been there?
I've never been under the Pentagon.
They have a drive-through now. It's right beside the
Right?
Sniper joint.
Oh my God. Okay. Wow. I don't know. Okay, so I know that there's got to be some kind of weird conspiracy thing happening where there's like secret government organizations and stuff. There has to be, because everybody has to have a way to cover up something if it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't want the general public to know about it. But I really don't think there is as many hidden things as we seem to think there are. Do you know what, like I think that, yeah, there's probably a few here
That's
and there.
what they want you to think.
Okay. But,
Infiltrate the CIA.
I ain't infiltrating no CIA. They wouldn't let me in there if my life depended on it. Come on now.
Look at it this way. Anytime you see any kind of covert ops, any kind of black project, the CIA is involved.
I would say that there's quite a few of them that they have no jurisdiction over either.
Project Paperclip.
Okay, so we're told that this is some kind of a CIA thing, but how do you know that it's actually CIA and the CIA thing isn't the actual cover-up?
Paperclip wasn't that big of a secret. We defeated the Nazis, and we said, oh my God, we got these German scientists that know how to make rockets, and we don't. And we captured the ones we could, and the Russians captured the ones they could, and we took our best and their best, and we all raced for the moon, and we all made big rockets, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, but what if we...
That was Paperclip.
What if we... I know you've heard the theory that we weren't actually enemies with the Russians. It was all a cover-up. And we were actually working with the Russians to get to the moon. Have you ever heard of that one?
I heard the Russians actually tried to land some guys there and it didn't make it. They crashed. But it got covered up.
Mm-hmm. It would be the perfect cover, though. Make everyone think that we're actually fighting the Russians when in all reality we're friends with them.
Well, I also heard that Kennedy was going to make the big announcement that we shouldn't be fighting each other when it comes to going into space, into the moon, and he was going to do cooperation with the Russians. And next thing you know, he's got a problem with lead poisoning.
Yeah, and then he gets killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to do a show on that.
We actually, well, not
Soon.
on necessarily the death of Kennedy, but everything that led up to the death of Kennedy.
When it comes to the death of Kennedy, all I can say, they say Oswald shot, but I'm saying Kennedy shot first.
Explain that one. I want to hear this.
Well, it's kind of a humorous thing, but hard to explain.
More like Star Wars Cantina action.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Han did shoot first.
I don't know. I mean, I'm all for a good conspiracy. Don't get me wrong. I delve into some crazy conspiracy stuff sometimes.
Uh-huh.
But there's some of them that are even a little too far-fetched for me to take seriously, where I'm like,
Oh, wait, like Flat Earth?
Hey, man, Flat Earth could happen. You don't even know.
At least the one she meets.
Okay, there are a lot of them out there, though, where everybody is just trying to find the answer to the ultimate question, which is why in the hell we're here in the first place. Okay? Why are we here? Why is there a world? Why do we exist? Everything else. So, in doing that, everybody came up with these interesting theories as to why we are. Some of them possibly and potentially make sense in certain ways. Others are just so far-fetched, there's no way that could come close to being reality or a possibility. But I don't know, man. When you get into all of the upper government conspiracies and this person did this to that person and that person did this to this person, man, you could get lost in there for years, and some people have gotten crazy doing it.
And it all ties back to the Royal Bloodline.
Well, of course it does. I mean, honestly, if you look at anybody, somewhere in your history, you have ties to the Royal Bloodline.
So, Joe, do you think the Queen is really a reptilian?
Oh, God.
I don't know if she's reptilian, but I'm convinced all the royalty of Europe are a bunch of inbred freaks. They married into each other's families for so many centuries that, what was it, Queen Victoria had 8 kids and 7 of them were hemophiliacs. I mean, it's horrible. I mean, if you look at King Edward in England, his cousin was Tsar Nicholas, and they looked exactly the same.
This is true.
You can do that after the show. Google those two. They were all interbred. They were all family. And when you do that, you know, things happen. Maybe you do start looking reptilian.
Right? And hey, I'm just going to throw this out here, but has anybody noticed that, Mark Zuckerberg kind of looks a lot like that line? Just saying.
Oh, Dennis is saying one royal was supposedly Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
That is always we are going to do a show. I don't know when. We have to do a lot of research on what was the theory really between Princess Diana's death.
The royals didn't want a Saudi in the family. They would have been related to him. So they knocked her off.
Well, I have no doubt they knocked her off. No doubt whatsoever. Because I'm sorry, her driver wasn't drunk. There's no way.
No, he wasn't.
You know, because they try to come out and say, "Oh yeah, we did an alcohol test on him. He was drunk." No, he wasn't. Ain't no royal family driver. Ain't no.
Well, maybe the Queen's.
It's real simple. She displeased the Queen.
If I had to be her driver, I'd be drunk too.
I think Charles would be the one for me if I had to be his driver.
Huh?
If I had to be Charles' driver.
Why do you think they moved to Canada?
No, Charles.
Okay.
Charles. That's the other one.
Who's the other one? Who's the one that moved to Canada?
Harry.
Yeah.
I stopped caring about the royal family in 1776.
Oh. Okay, so you know that the whole Jack the Ripper thing, getting onto that topic for a second. Okay, there's a lot of people that say that Jack the Ripper was what H.H. Holmes, just in disguise.
I believe that one. I like that one.
There's a lot of other people. There's some people that say he was Count Bacon. There's some people that say that he was from the Royal Bloodline, that he was Prince of this, or that he was... Again, so, with Jack the Ripper, everybody has these wild theories about it and everything else, right? But if you think about most serial killers, right? And I'm talking most serial killers from today that we know of. We got, Green River, we got Manson, all of these guys, right? Most of them are nobodies from nowhere. Like, that's what makes them...
The FBI says that at any given time there's 20 to 30 serial killers running around the United States.
That's
we
what
don't know
makes
who they are.
them so...
I would say higher than that.
Caleb, they're keeping track of you.
Right. But, I mean, that's what makes a person able to actually do that, is the fact that they're nobody. They aren't on any watch list. They aren't on anything like this, because they are absolutely nobody from nowhere. They are people that specifically blend in because of the fact that they do this extracurricular crap.
Well, sociopaths like that stay off the radar anyway.
Right. So I think, as far as like Jack the Ripper and all the famous serial killers, I believe they're just nobodies. They had a book, they studied some stuff, they figured some stuff out, and they went for it.
Well, there is a lot to be said for him being a member of the royal family. Because although, like, yes, we follow our celebrities and everything like crazy, so does England, you do not know where they are 24/7.
Nope.
You can't. It is possible for the president to leave the White House without people knowing.
It is. It is. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just...
And you think of how many hidden passages you have to almost guarantee there are in Buckingham Palace. right? Like it's
Yes, okay. I'm not saying that it couldn't be, but in my thought process, most of these people are not people that would be on anyone's radar for any reason.
So Dennis is saying Patricia Cornwell claims it was someone named Walter Sickert through her forensic book, Ripper's Secret Life, and it can be found on Amazon. I'd have to look that up.
Anytime you have an event that nobody really knows where it came from, it's put on somebody famous. Okay? And they say, oh, well, this person did this. Or it has to be this person because of the fact that it somewhat lines up to the stuff that they're doing.
Right.
Or that they had done in the past. Or whatever that... But, look at everybody saying William Shakespeare was actually this person. Or was actually that person. Under different pen names and all of that jazz. Well... likelihood is that it's just a random ass person named William Shakespeare that came out of nowhere, wrote something, it went famous. Who do we got? Wow, I can't remember her name now. J.K. Rowling did the same thing. Person from nowhere, didn't really have much going on, wrote a book, it exploded.
on a napkin.
Right.
On a napkin.
No,
You know that J.K. Rowling's, Harry Potter, and me all shared the same birthday.
Cool.
July 31st.
Did you get your letter yet?
He's a little...
No.
Those
My owls
bastards.
don't deliver.
But I mean, okay, so like J.R. Tolkien, too. Wells. Any of these famous people, any of the people that wrote any of these famous documents, famous books, famous... they came from pretty much nowhere. I mean, there's occasionally one or two that came from a royal line or from a house that had a ton of money, but most of our things that make human history, that stay with us, that are big events or huge books or any of that kind of stuff, they came from nowhere. They came from somebody sitting on their couch in the middle of nowhere.
And now they're trying to let the Green River Killer out of prison.
Really?
That's insane.
It's stupid.
Well, I am going to take my brown-haired, green-eyed ass and get it out of here, if that's the case.
Because of COVID. It's something I read in passing. Is it true or not? I hope not.
I can't see it being true. They're not allowing high-end criminals like that out. They are letting...
I would hope
small
not.
time.
Again, I would hope not.
Although that's not really a great thing either, because they let all these small-time criminals out, and it included people who did computer fraud.
This
and
is
then
true.
all of a sudden,
Washington
had like 40,000 freaking cases of
computer fraud. Unemployment fraud.
Yeah.
Right.
Wonder who that was.
So as we're coming down to the last 10 minutes of the show, I hope you all enjoyed Dr. Simeon Hein. We will have him back. We'll probably have him back for Roundtable, actually, in June. And yes, it's June tomorrow. Kind of hard to believe.
No kidding.
Right? God. I feel like this went through so fast and slow at the same time. Certain weeks, these last few months, have felt like a year. Other weeks have flown by so fast that I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, it's already Sunday? So
I'm sorry, March felt like 6 months alone.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine you up in the bunker, Joe.
Oh, I'm loving it up here. I mean, life hasn't changed a bit for me.
Right.
Nothing's on fire. There's no looting going on. There's no COVID.
Lucky.
Although my owls haven't come back this year. I don't know. Maybe they got it.
They all went to Hogwarts.
It's possible.
So in June, we are looking at probably having a dragon show.
Ooh, dragons.
A what?
Dragons.
We're going to have a show on dragons.
Oh, dragon. I thought you said dragon.
No, dragon.
But okay, here's something I don't know about.
So if you want to hear a topic, by all means, shoot me a message on Facebook. Throw it up in Forest Moon Paranormal. I know we keep talking about Forest Moon Paranormal. If you're new to the show and you don't know about FMP, just look for Forest Moon Paranormal in Facebook. Jump into the group. It is a global group. Been around since, 2012, 12, 11.
Yeah.
The group itself has actually been around since 2004 in Iraq. But Facebook-wise, 2012.
Yep, and we are revamping and constantly updating Forest Moon. We're going to have some interesting stuff coming in there in the next few months. So definitely keep an eye on that and check it out.
Including the fight.
Yep. And we're doing the verses, weekly verses.
Not to give away any surprises, but what are a couple of our other verses that we're doing?
Oh, man. There's some good ones in there. There's some good ones in there.
We have a whole list.
We do have a whole list of verses, guys.
If you're just not catching the show, we are it is a Black-Eyed Children versus the Greys. Who would win and why?
All right, we got I'll just throw off the first couple of them here, and it would be Banshees versus Sirens.
Oh, Banshees.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Joe? I think Banshees would beat Sirens.
Banshees.
Yep.
And then we got a Goat Man versus Bigfoot.
Bigfoot.
I agree, but think about it. Goat Man has horns.
I had a goat, and I used to wrestle it. It had horns. I always won.
Joe wrestled a horny goat. What you doing, Joe?
That was a big goat. It was a French Alpine. He was big.
Yeah.
Nice.
So think about the French Alpine going against Bigfoot. Bigfoot's bulky and muscular and brawny. But
it's those hands. You can grab the horns.
Well,
not only that, but if he is really, truly interdimensional, Goatman really doesn't stand a chance.
You're kind of ruining the...
I'm sorry.
So here's the deal. I put the group link into the comments here on Spreaker. So if you need to join the group, go ahead and you'll find it there every week. You'll find a comment or a post from Kayla, and just write your comment in the comments area and tell us who's going to win and why.
Be descriptive.
So every week we're going to be throwing 2 paranormal creatures into the ring.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be like Friday night fight night. It's going to be great. We have another competition coming up in July, kind of like what we did with the writing.
Yeah. Yep.
We'll give more details on that probably about the middle of June.
Absolutely.
I do want them to have time because this is a time-consuming project.
Absolutely, yeah. There is not going to be with this one. We'll give you all the details later. It will not be the same format. It will be a totally different format, and it will be great. This one's going to be awesome.
I look forward to it because I want to see what comes out of it.
Absolutely, it's going to be great, guys. So stay tuned for that. Definitely.
Don't forget to go visit our S4 store, www.s-4radio.com, and just click on the merch, and we've got a lot of good stuff in there. Like there's when you do it on your phone, there's 20 pages.
You just like the apron.
No, there's quite a few items in there that I am eventually going to have in this house.
Oh, me too. I've got to have the new S4 mug.
Did you hear that? Eric's going to put stuff in our house.
Nice. Hey, I will say, though, guys, keep watching that website because we are constantly updating it. We have a lot of new stuff coming out on that in the next few weeks here. So keep checking it out. We also have a new guest page, which has information on all of the guests that will be in our upcoming shows.
And we are working on new guests coming into the show.
Yes,
absolutely.
I have 3 pages of names that I'm going to be contacting. If you want to hear somebody interviewed on the show, again, you need to send me a message so I can try to track them down. What I need from you, as our listeners, is we have all kinds of speakers that can talk about aliens and UFOs and Bigfoot and cryptids, but it's hard to find somebody on the ghost and the haunting side. And I don't want somebody.
Okay,
from
we're talking somebody valid.
Somebody
from the
valid.
ghost and the haunting side.
I don't want an actor from a TV show. That's what I don't want.
Mm-hmm.
I want a scientist. I want someone that's educated, that's been in the field for at least a minimum of 10 years or more. If you've been in the field for under 10 years, you're a newbie. That's my opinion, but you're new to the field if you're an investigator under 10 years. Mm-hmm. Because your typical team, and this is not bashing on you at all, everyone's learning. But if you've been in this field for under 10 years, you've probably been on a typical case 1 to 2 times a month, if that. And if with the COVID, you probably haven't been doing anything. But, prior to COVID, you've probably only done 1 or 2 cases a month. That's not a lot of experience. You're learning, you're advancing, but when it comes to the show, I want somebody that's been in this field for at least 10 years. So if you have somebody in mind that you want to hear, shoot us a message.
Yep, most definitely.
With that, thank you all for listening. Have a great night.
Thanks for coming in, Joe.
Yeah, thank you, Joe.
And it's a pleasure.
Again, thank you, Dr. Simeon Hein, if you're still listening. We caught him at a bad time. But we will have him back for a part 2 definitely later on and probably a round table. So y'all stay safe. We'll see you next week, and keep your eyes to the skies.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight on S4, the official voice of Forest Moon Paranormal. You can contact S4 through our website at www.s-4radio.com or on Facebook. Make sure you give us a like on our page and join the Forest Moon Paranormal Group. If you are interested in advertising, take a look at our packages and contact Cole or Eric at 1-360-999-2830. Again, thank you. And remember, keep your eyes to the sky.